Check.
I keep a seat where the light won't reach. Whisper low so it sounds like peace. Lay your head, let the ceiling spin. You don't have to begin again. I've been here where the air goes thin. Saw what happens when you try to win. Better stay where the walls don't move. Nothing left that you have to prove. I don't push, I pull you close till you forget what you wanted most. It's just the way of the world. Down in the dirt where the flowers bloom. It's just the way of the world. You'll feel the power of an empty room. It's just the way of the world. Just wait a moment and we'll start again. You are the enemy of my friend, my friend, my friend, my friend. Take my hand, feel the current slow.
Good morning, everybody. About to get started. Hit that like, share the show.
Every spark only burns you out. Every dream just a longer drought. I don't lie, I just dim the flame. Give your hunger another name. Call it calm, call it letting go. Call it all that you'll never know. If you don't raise, you don't fall apart. That's the safest way to break up. It's just the way of the world. Down in the dirt where the flowers bloom. It's just the way of the world. You'll feel the power of an empty room. It's just the way of the world. Just wait a moment and we'll start again. You are the enemy of my friend, my friend, my friend, my Stay down, stay near. I need you right here. Stay down, stay small, I'm nothing. It's just the way of the world. That's what I say.
All right, we're about to get started, ladies and gentlemen.
It's just the way of the world.
I have to say, all right, I'm gonna get me straight in there. Chat room, let me say hello real quick, if I may. Let's wait. Sorry, I've got to bring in the window and do the whole thing like this, and there we go, and back to live mode, and then I'll bring in Cliff in just 1 second. But I think that's the song that I'm that's winning, most likely to have a music video for it. So let me bring in Cliff of the new stuff that's coming out. Cliff, it's good to see you,
Am
my
I
friend.
in?
Yes, you are. Is everybody in? Is everybody in?
Am I in? Are we out? What's
We're
going
in
on?
over our head. We're under the
I'm
gun.
in over my head. You know
We're over
why?
the top.
You know why
What?
you're going to appreciate it? Why I'm in
Uh-huh.
over my head? You,
Uh-huh.
of all people.
Because you're
You
going to
with
see
your
King Sex
band.
live? No, okay, yeah.
Last night, David Lee Roth.
Yes.
Oh, I don't care. It was a religious experience. I know people have said, complained he's not the same as he was and this and that. Well, I think he took, like, when he came back out for the first time from retirement, you know, for after
Yeah.
a few years, 5 years ago, he had that spinal issue.
Yeah.
he clearly, because I watched him and he looked so stiff on that video and everything. He clearly, I don't know what he did in the intervening time, but man, he was dancing around last night to
Yeah.
dance the night away. And he was like, and his voice had improved. I'm not saying it's what it was, but like,
Yep.
it was, I mean, seriously, I mean, you have to understand high school for me was Led Zeppelin
Yes.
and Van Halen.
Right.
And I had never, because, you know, I'm the age I am, I'm 54. Like I was too young to see live anyhow, like Van
Right.
Halen with David Lee Roth. I'd only ever seen, and I love Sammy Hagar too, but I'd only ever seen Sammy Hagar, and he did everything from Van Halen 1, not all every song, but covered
Yeah.
the whole thing through 1984, and just ones that like Unchained and you
Oh, yeah.
Mean Streets, and songs that like I mean, Ice Cream Man. Oh,
Uh-huh.
he was so good, dude.
He's
I'm still high, and I didn't
That's
do
so
any
great.
drugs.
That is so great. That is, you know, I have, I jokingly referred to during that time you're talking about where he had a stiff back issue that David Lee Roth is the Joe Biden of rock stars, where when he walks out on stage, you're like, oh, please be okay. And then when he actually delivers, you're like, oh, right. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Well,
He's got it. He just, physical limitations are one thing because everybody runs into those. I mean, I saw Lane Staley perform with Alice in Chains after a quote unquote skateboarding accident where his leg was in a cast.
I mean, that's just tragedy.
Yeah,
I never got to see Lane Staley. So that's why I have certain bucket list folks like David Lee Roth now that I have to see.
Yes.
There aren't many, I mean, very few. He was just about, because he'd been retired for a while, he was just about the only one. But you're right. I'm not saying, look, it's that much tougher when there's a guy that, you know, was an expert in jujitsu and this stuff and was doing jumping splits on the stage.
Yeah.
When they become, you know, limited in mobility, it's that much more like of a shock. But that's the thing. Like last night, he didn't do that, but he did a thing with the microphone stand where he started twirling it again.
Yeah, he does.
And
he does
dancing
staff
around.
stuff.
He looked, I mean, seriously, he looked like 50 to 75% better.
I got to tell you, there's two big things are going to bring back some of your favorite rock stars. It's going to be stem cells and peptides. They're all going to be on it. If not TRT, that's going to be one of the other things. But that only really works for
definitely
like
did something.
Yes,
there's no. I mean, I don't care. I'm sure there's a lot of.
There's so many technologies. Yeah,
right.
Though now that just didn't exist.
So
I mean,
there's nothing.
And then Ozempic
out of bounds. I will be happy this whole show. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about upsetting things, but honestly, I could see a nuke coming towards me right now, and I'd still have a big smile like the Joker on my face. I don't care.
There obviously there will be some people you can't salvage. Like I don't think Ozempic is going to save Vince Neil anytime soon, but it might bring Blackie Lawless back from the abyss. And
I think when you're the thing is the problem with that, not to criticize, but the only problem with that analysis is it would take a lot more than Ozempic.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch. There's a whole.
Is there brain Zembic? Right.
Exactly. As I say, there's really a whole list of treatments and therapies and things that Vince Neil would seem to need, and he doesn't seem to want to use any of them. Because I saw him live 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting worse. I mean,
yes. Which brings us to. And you're such a master at this, bringing it right back to the topic at hand, which of course is Donald Trump's hard fade that was on full display at the Knicks game / Spurs game. I don't want to, I don't care about basketball, so I don't want to disparage you. Yeah, it was the Knicks game. Great. Him falling asleep after pizza and shoveling French fries into his gaping butthole of a mouth, and then basically just conking out. And it was funny because there were a bunch of people like, he didn't, who cares if he was sleeping, blah, blah, blah.
It felt like a Monty Python skit. Like,
yeah, right.
I'm not quite dead yet, sir.
He's the parrot. Yeah, like, I feel happy. Right.
Or they're like poking him with a stick. I mean, let me just put it this way. And in case sort of, I don't really care if people would get upset me if I were to say something horrible about Trump because he would deserve everything I said. But I don't want the man to die because I want us to have an enormous victory. I want him to end up in The Hague and tried for war crimes. And I would like him to live to about 175 and spend every fucking miserable minute of that in
watching that happen. Right.
Oh, actually, watching like all of the glamorous people, he forced to watch a TV with all the people that he wished liked him, like George Clooney and Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama, all the people he knows are better than him, who he hates because they insult him and mock him and can't stand him. Like that would be
Right.
my punishment. I want him alive, but I am telling you, objectively speaking, having good friends who are doctors and some of that, he is dying in front of our eyes. I mean, that is what he's slowly.
Yeah.
He has heart. Look, my dad had heart disease. I saw it up close. Sadly, I mean, the cankles, the gained weight, the water weight, the
confusion.
Confusion, the falling asleep. There's some combination. It's not even his normal, the stuff that he's had his whole life, the sociopathy and narcissism, whatever.
Right.
It's some combination of dementia and heart disease. And I've said this, you know, like I'm not in a dead pool that I'm aware of. But if people want to, you know, if I were, I don't think he'll be here. I think by the January 1st, he will be gone. That is what I've said many times.
Yes, after talking, we have Doc Adam who comes on the show, and there's been a couple of people who've been a little more open about, you know, addressing this clear illness that he is going through. And after the current unpleasantness, whoops, sorry, my cousin's calling, and that's as you do. As of the current unpleasantness that I'm going through with, you know, and that Summer is going through, and that we are trying to see her through. You know, between my dad and this or whatever.
You've been through a lot, and
there's been a bunch of it. Yeah, and it's ongoing. And one of the things about Summer getting chemo that she just finished, thank God, and we're into the radiation phase, which is its own thing. But the chemo part of it, there were a lot of things about chemo that seemed to overlap with what Trump has been going through. Mainly that 3 to 5 days where he kind of disappears beginning, end of the month, around 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks apart. Yeah. Which is about how far Summer's treatments were placed apart. Hers were 3 weeks and change. And the 5 days after you have it, the day after they give you a bunch of steroids and you're very chatty and full of beans. And then you're out of it for 4 days. And the third or fourth day is the worst, where you feel like your skin is boiling and your internal organs are cooking and it's fucked up. And then there's a day after that where it starts to even out. And then if you're relatively healthy, after about 6 days, you're back to your relative normal self. And then it's just the stress of, I got to go through this again in a couple of weeks, right?
I mean, I'm not going to compare and say it was anything close, because it was not on the same level. But
right.
I had Graves' disease when I was 29. And so they had to, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. They had to nuke my thyroid because it was overproductive. It was too fast. And so they had to give me radioactive iodine to the point where I actually had to lock my cat in a different room because the cat could get it, like get poisoning, radioactive poisoning.
We have to do we have to use different bathrooms and all that kind of stuff right after her treatment at the house, and I sleep in another room for a couple of days after.
And I'm just saying, I only had to go through that once, and it still
obviously Melania's not complaining about this at any point, but
it wasn't on the level of chemo, and so I'm not trying, but it changed in a lot of ways. It changes your life. It changes how you see things. I honestly, like, I was going through panic attacks that were just set off by like intolerance to heat, which has been a lasting effect. That if it gets really hot, I run like 5 degrees hotter than normal humans, where it bothers me, and stuff like that. But I'm just saying that to commiserate and say, I please wish her all my best.
Thank you.
I know, I don't know what she's going through. I know maybe that much of it, and even that, for me, those couple days after, really up to about a week after, was just horrible. So
and she, we've been, in going through this, and it becomes your new norm for a while, and they're, Summer's hilariously sort of developing a sitcom around the people that she has interacted with, who have to, this little like gathering. It's like Cheers in a cancer ward, because it's like
you should do that. I mean,
you're like,
you need a creative outlet. I wrote so much poetry during that time and things like that in my own way, because ideas came to me and things popped, because having some kind of creative outlet, I think, is a really, really good thing for that. So that's
exactly
smart. Especially something that's funny like that. That's great.
Yeah. And like we're thinking it's like a sitcom version of The Pit, but just around the cancer ward where everybody goes in there for their treatments. It's and also thank you for booing me, Kat. When we get sentimental, it's the only way to push back. If anybody's nice to me when I start getting sad or sentimental, it's it makes it worse. So everybody, please boo if I start getting teary eyed. But in watching her go through this and her, like, she has to get, she got her chemo injection on her hand right here when she would sit in her chair and, and so you sit there and she had a cold cap on to keep her hair from falling out as best we could. I mean, there's limits in how much that will help, but it's basically like cryo freeze your skull. She hates the cold. I love the cold. She hates it. She's a beach kid. So it was even worse for her.
And that's the thing now. Is I love the cold so much. I'd sit in one of those cryo things forever if I could.
I know. I go there's a cryo place not far from our house. I go there on the regular. Anyways, so she, as she's going through that, I'm like, this looks very familiar to the bruise she came home with after the second week on her hand looked exactly like where Trump's been covering his hand, and he had that crusty patch bruise right here.
Right.
And that's what set my radar up. And then the whole 3 to 5 days where he's just out of circulation.
At one point, it was, I don't mean it, sorry, but
go ahead.
It was worse than that. Remember, there was a period we didn't see him for 8 days. And I know enough people, I don't have any close insider friends who are MAGA people because I, as you would imagine, loathe anybody that would associate with him.
Yeah. So it's difficult.
I do know a bunch of people who have, inside information who when Trump took over the Republican Party, broke away from that universe and still know people in it. And I'm here to tell you that there are very inside people, as in really 2 layers at most removed from him, who thought he might be dead during those 8 days. That is how much they were where nobody saw him and nobody knew. There may have been his just inner circle that knew what was up. And so even that, if you took away everything else he's done, you cannot run a country that way. If anything had happened, for people who are in key national security positions and whatever, to not know if the president of the United States at that moment is Donald Trump or JD Vance, again, it's just adding to the long list of ways that we are utterly, that we are utterly being run like a banana republic right now. It's ridiculous. And yet we're people that there are people targeting at this moment who very much want to hurt us.
Yeah, well, remember how much the MAGA sphere exploded over Biden's Secretary of Defense when he was offline for 3 or 4 days, which was a medical thing as well. And he's not even the guy that makes the decision. He's the guy that gives advice, but he conveys the decision. Biden was always there. Biden was never missing like this at any point, even during the time when he was being, and by the way,
and let's all be honest here. Yeah. If something happened in Biden, we're missing. Let's see. There was the Senator, Attorney General of California, the District Attorney of San Francisco. There was somebody sitting there with the kind of experience you want and need if something like that happens. Yeah. And then there's 2-year Senator J.D. Vance, who not only, is one of the bigger assholes alive and doesn't know anything that he thinks he knows, but has literally none of the experience, just like his boss, to be in that position. So there's that.
So there, and that leads us to kind of like the chain of command idea. So on the one hand, let's be abundantly clear, everybody. He was absolutely asleep at the Knicks game. This whole idea that he was watching a video or something and it was down on a monitor, he was out.
The video inside of his eyeballs?
So they had screens.
I watch a video every night that's called Asleep and Dreaming. Is that the one we're discussing here? Because
there was some other angle somebody showed where there were screens on the railing in front of them, which I would argue was taken from another direction or maybe even another booth that where one of the team owners actually, runs the game out of there, as opposed to just one of the viewing ones for the, for highfalutin fancy pants people. And so the idea, but the problem is they were this way and Trump was like this, like he was, there's no screen that way. There's a wall. So point being, it was
He found the
obvious,
wall.
but
Come on, stop it, Hal. He found the wall really exciting. I mean,
he
who
did.
among us hasn't
It looked like
sat?
Ivanka. Right.
I'm enjoying this show, but I may just sit here and I think I'm going to look at that wall for 40 minutes and not talk to you. Is that okay?
Or stare at the engine of an airplane and go, look how spotless that plane
look,
is.
Water
It's beautiful.
bottle. I'm just going to do this for a while because that's normal.
Yeah. And it's like his like squirrel moments are becoming more frequent as well. Never mind the moment he walked up because he needed either shit away from other people. I don't care. I don't think he cares if he farts on other people. So I don't think that's why he left. But when he wandered over and
It's
was
a
like
shart,
looking,
pal. You got to get it right. It's a shart.
Oh, yeah. They're all sharts now. It's the current state of affairs. But he goes over and he looks out at the hole in the ground and like, it's going to be beautiful. You go to right through here, blah, blah, blah. It just, all of it's embarrassing. But his walkaways are getting more frequent. Now, there are two big
and his
things.
Walkaways, his meandering and losing kind of where he is when he's in conversations that are in public. Obviously, which, you know, a sign of dementia, that his losing his shit on anybody who asks him a question. The Kristen Welker interview. I mean, again, it's like you're mentally so bad that some combo of who you've always been plus your dementia now means nobody can question you, question the god Donald Trump. Nobody can make you have accountability for anything. None of that. But then, because in addition to his mind no longer working, his body no longer works. At least, you know, you want a cool scene from a movie where you stand up and storm out. He stands up and like walks out like he's got a walker, and it takes him like 90 seconds to get out of the room. And it's like, that's him storming out now.
Well, and they don't even they don't even show it.
Right.
Like
he should, again, I wouldn't care who the hell, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Socialist. There is in the same way that Strom Thurmond and Robert Byrd and Dianne Feinstein and right now Chuck Grassley have no business being in the Senate, particularly Chuck Grassley, who's like fourth in leadership. I mean, the Senate pro tem, that whole thing needs to be changed. The guy who's been there the longest, well, now that's going to be, or gal, that's going to be the person who's 145 at this point in our, but also, you know, but at least a few senators can only do so much damage. I mean, we need laws around this that are, you know, there's so many things, so many loopholes that we've learned are there. You know, a guy who it's sort of like, yes, we expect a guy who's appointed their own cabinet, kind of like expecting like Elon Musk's board to look at the 70%, you know, of sales that have fallen in Tesla and not give him $1 trillion.
And his ketamine usage. Right.
Because he appointed all of them. Yes, you get to appoint all of these people. And yeah, sure, they're going to call the 25th Amendment on you. All these people who know that their futures are tied to their loyalty to you, just like,
especially if they're lying right up to that moment. That's the other problem that they have, is that if they're telling like this, there's never been anybody fitter, stronger, more powerful, more well spoken, a better deal maker,
it has to be North
sharper.
Korea level shit too, because it's him.
Yeah. So and in the middle of it though, there is what I would call the pesky effect of gravity, that there are certain realities you cannot bullshit your way out of. You cannot Wile E. Coyote your way off a cliff and then stand there and be forced to read a book on gravity before you start falling. And this is where the Trump economic picture is really starting to come into focus. And this idea that he can blame Joe Biden for the effects of the decisions that he himself has made is becoming more and more hilarious, especially amongst.
I know you know, it's just, you just want to ask at some point. And again, he doesn't live in reality, so it doesn't matter. He's always been a serial liar, so it doesn't matter. And you could pin him down and whatever, and then he'll just get up and walk out. Although that's preferable. I would rather have that. That's what they should do rather than. But you're never going to get him to admit it and just be like, dude. What's the statute of limitations on this? We'd like to know, because when you came into office, everything was great. Joe Biden didn't fire now, at the very least in recent studies, 300,000 plus, or deport 300,000 plus farm workers. You did. Joe Biden didn't become the taco man. Tariffs on, tariffs off, tariffs on China for soybeans, tariffs on 100% for cars, tariffs on. So no business can make plans for how they're going to hire and fire and where they're going to spend money and invest. Particularly small businesses that don't have a big reserve of cash have gone out of business. That was you. Nobody else started a war with Iran stupidly that's only enriched contractors for the amounts of money where we can have universal health care, universal family and medical leave, universal child care, and a million other things, and thereby driven us into such debt that the Republicans who claim whenever there's a Democrat in power to care about it, we're in such massive debt that like we're downgraded by the world and in danger of being further downgraded and having, no one even want to trade our money because at some point it becomes toilet paper. And we,
Right.
the full faith and credit of the United States means absolutely nothing. He chose to do that. Nobody else didn't know there was something called the Strait of Hormuz, where
Right.
not only did so much of the gas, oil supply go through, but 1/3 of the fertilizer, thereby triple fucking farmers because now we've deported your workers, we've hit you with tariffs, and
Now-
you have to pay a ton more for fertilizer. And I could go
now,
on.
now,
Like, there's
now,
firing
Cliff,
government
are you
workers,
are you
and
trying to tell me that you knew there was a B in the word dumb? Are you trying to convince us that
no, I mean, obviously, let's do the English language via Trump. He thinks it's a better word without it, and clearly, considering his views are so important on everything, because when it comes to everything from going bankrupt or bankrupting a country to showing up in the Epstein files more times than Jesus does in the Bible, clearly that's
Yeah.
the person whose advice we'd like to take on everything. The people
Well,
that voted for this guy should
Yeah.
honestly never show their faces again. They should either announce publicly that they renounce him and renounce that vote and are embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed by this, and will spend the rest of their lives atoning for it, or they should just stop showing up in public because
Right.
this is
Well, and
this
that's
is,
where okay. So let's talk about a couple of those people because lately you've got Tucker Carlson, effectively apologizing for his part in in getting Trump elected, but at the same time, sort of ignoring the idea that he vilified people on our side of the aisle, people like you and I, who were saying this whole time that Trump is going to do exactly what he's doing right now, that he's always been a liar and he's always going to, he's going to be the most corrupt president ever. Of course, he's going to do what's in his interests over the country's. Like, it's so obvious to us. And the idea that we were treated as villains because because we weren't questioning him, we were questioning America.
How many times has this happened? I mean, we went through it with Bush in Iraq. It's just it's ridiculous at this point. It's sort of like you can only get away with those claims because you have a big right-wing media infrastructure that will allow you to lie constantly, and because our corporate media is such an utter pile of shit that they'll both sides everything. They won't call you out. They won't actually tell people the truth, because if people were told the truth, look, I'm happy to have we get rid of Trump. You should be willing to, in the moment, ally yourself, not a lie like, hey, I'm going to hang out with, but be happy that anybody is. I'm glad Tucker Carlson is helping peel members of the base away for the midterms. I'm glad Megyn Kelly is doing that. I'm glad Alex Jones is doing that. I'm glad Marjorie Taylor Greene. But don't get mixed up between like useful allies right now, because the most important thing is getting our country back, and people that are good faith, decent people, because these people are all whores who would do anything. Tucker Carlson is the heir to the goddamn frozen food Swanson's empire. He doesn't even need the money. He's doing it because he's so desperate for people to pay attention to him and say his name, because clearly there's something lacking inside. So he has to have that to feel any self-value, that he would go. I mean, you and I have been around long enough. I remember when he was calling Democrats traitors for not supporting the Iraq war back in on Crossfire. Now he's anti-Iran.
Oh, of course.
15 different places in between. He'll be
course.
wherever.
Of course. Yes. Of course. Obviously. It's like,
and they're on the left too.
Like what
I called out the other day.
Fucking Jimmy Dore was on. Oh my God.
Jake Duger and Jimmy Dore and Anna Kasparian and all of them, they're a bunch of whores too. And now I don't mean it in the sexual sense of anybody's going to come after me for that for sexism.
They don't have the decency to be sex workers. Right.
Exactly. I'm not insulting sex workers. They're political whores, what all these people are. And I have to say, as somebody, especially with of a Jewish background, when I see Anna Kasparian going on shows, and saying these virulently anti-Semitic things, and I'd be like, of course, because you're the Armenian who joined the Young Turks. Clearly, you don't even care about the people that killed that massacred your own people.
Yeah.
You'd sell out for that. So why wouldn't you
The-
sell out?
and for those that don't know, the Young Turks are the people who perpetuated the Armenian genocide, and she sits on a show named after that group. It is as if I don't know who's a good example.
It's if I went on
yeah.
the Young Himmlers. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what it
right.
would be
Or the
like.
Brown Shirts. If you were on a show called The Brown Shirts and somebody else created, and by the way, one of the people that created it was your German co-host.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's so fucking insane that you wouldn't just.
And they're the same thing. Like they are literally, they have been in they were liberals at one point. They were like over here to the far left at one point. Now they've, on certain issues they've decided they want to like pick a fight with the far left base, and they position themselves, well, we're going to fight with them on trans issues, but fight with them on these issues, not I mean, like, it's who's paying you.
And what ultimately is ultimately coming to the reality. This is just, you're watching the maturation of a sort of college activist mentality turned over, in a media organization. Like eventually you have to come to the determination that if you were an absolutist at one point, you realize by hook or by crook over time that you were full of shit, that you didn't have all the information, and that you were making these kind of blanket judgments about other people that were engaged in the conversation with you, as if they were villains on the scale of the Nazis and whatnot, so much so that you threw that whole thing out the window and named the show The Young Turks. Like it's so absurd. Like, and then Jimmy Dore was just on Tucker's show this week. He was interviewed by him, and all Tucker did the entire time.
I'm sorry,
Jimmy Dore was on Tucker Carlson this week.
Oh, of course. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Well, that was Tucker. That was how Tucker Carlson answered everything. Of course. Oh, yes.
Jimmy Dore, the socialist, multi-million-dollar mansion in L.A. I'm sure. I mean, like, these people are so patently Jimmy Dore, who took money from Syria, from Assad. I mean, they're such patent, like they're so pathetic. They're such ghouls that so many people fall for their crap. And I mean, that the horseshoe thing is real, except for in this country, it seems to basically just be based on money and fame. If you want it enough, you'll go all the way around the horseshoe to wherever the hell you end up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's paying you. It doesn't matter if it's a right-wing billionaire. It doesn't matter if it's Russia, China.
Look, audience capture is just another way of saying, brand new house and a hot new car.
Right, exactly. And I'll just say for people because I think most people I know have divorced themselves from watching any of that garbage at this point.
Yeah.
And I got my start, to be clear, doing a segment on the Young Turks. And I will even admit that I didn't know what that term meant at the time. But at the same time, I'm not Armenian. I did know what Auschwitz meant. Like I don't really think Anna has a. If I'd known what that term meant, I would have never gone on that show. And I don't think Anna has an excuse, because how could you not know what that term meant if you were Armenian? But beyond all that, these are the people we have out there polluting, the discourse in our atmosphere.
I would argue. Let me address a couple of things. One is the fact that they are not a liberal organization. They are strictly for the purpose of depressing the Democratic vote, either by
that's how they make their money.
Yes, because if you're the opposition, you make the most money when the other group is in charge, because you have an easy opponent to vilify. It's much easier for you if Trump is in charge. You make way more money than if you have to actually argue the merits. As a policy wonk, I like the details. That's why I like democracy. I like working it out. I understand not everybody's going to agree with me, and I want to find a bridge we can all agree on, because we can't just put one anywhere in the river. We got to agree on where it gets built. It is. Is that even when you're in power? And that's why these people were like, you didn't get everything, you sold out. Yeah, there's certain issues, certain key things you cannot sell out, because they're about people's humanity and other stuff. Otherwise, when you're negotiating things, economic bills, other stuff, the whole point of democracy is you're supposed to cooperate and try to work it. I mean, you can't with this Republican Party, but I'm talking about in normal democracies during normal times. And you don't get everything you want, because democracy, you are trading in some of what you want for the security and stability and everything else that democracy provides. That's the whole point. That's why I push back on the word fight all the time, because fighters of the fighter language has gotten us into this situation. Because I don't want fighters in Congress. I want legislators and good debaters and arguably decent salespeople, people who can convince other people that this is the path forward and get it on board, so we can at least pilot things and get them done. So people go, oh, I do like the ACA. Maybe we should add a public option.
I disagree with you somewhat on that, only because I think you're right. During normal times, I feel like this is a break glass in case of emergency moment, and so I use the fighter language. And
I don't mean acquiescing, right? I like that language. I just find farcical. It's somebody who's been in a lot of actual fights. I find it cartoonish, and that's the part that bothers me. Let me address one thing though, and this goes to your kind of concept of farcical, full of shit people who claim online in their expression to be that very fighter crowd. And one of those is Bongholio, the former Secret Service lunk who eventually, Dan Bongholio,
who one time insulted me on Twitter, then blocked me. But I
got blocked by him too.
But did he do this? Because this is the behavior of a normal person who should have been deputy at the FBI. He blocked me. But he had a burner account, and he couldn't control himself from seeing my response where I ripped the crap out of him and mocked him. So then he unblocked me to insult me again, but blocked me again. And then I mocked him again, and then he unblocked me. I mean, like, this is a child. This is a fucking child.
So a couple of things we'll address, and I want to make sure we cover these. One is the inflation rate that's gone up. It's 4.3%, and an obvious spike that Trump is going to blame on this excursion, which is, the Vietnam War lasted a long time, so I don't know what people are bitching about.
Even though this has not ended. Saying it's because of Biden's age, and I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, I blame. If obviously Biden caused all the problems in 2020 as well. So there's this story in the New York Times that is an excerpt from a new Maggie Haberman book called Regime Change, right? Okay.
Another one. I'm sorry. If she gets some, again, as I've said, it's the same thing with the Young Turks, if they're even doing it. But anybody who helps get Trump out of office for the moment, good. Anybody who's insulting him, good. Whether it's the Young Turks, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, because we need to get him out of there. But know the difference, and know that for right now, you're glad they're saying what they're saying if they have an audience, but understand who they are. And that, to me, it goes with Maggie Haberman, too. If she exposes stuff, anything good, she's another one who's just a fucking, she's not a political whore. She's a book access whore.
It's like Michael Wolff, like they sit on this stuff at the time until they can sell a book based on it. When this should have been a series of articles in the New York Times. This is how it used to work. You used to run a series of articles, and then you did a book years later where you put all those articles together that exposed things at the time, and then
but
those articles then
baby, Hal, come on, Nepo babies need to get their $3 million, $5 million book deals. I mean,
I guess so.
They can't just live on being
let
Nepo
me show you
alone.
this. So let me so there's this chunk of it that's been released in the New York Times and that people are talking about this morning, and it's a rather long piece in the New York Times. That's almost a chapter of the book itself, which again should have been released months ago. Some of it is obvious public reporting, and some of it is stuff that it would have been good to know at the time. But the story they have about Bongholio before he faked quit and stormed out when he didn't show up for work for a few days. Remember that shit when that was going on? And then he tucked his tail and fucked off. Because he's a fighter. So they released that memo, and I've said all along, you can chart Trump's polling demise, which is right now the worst it's ever been, just like last week. And the fact that his poll numbers are going down while the stock market is still doing very well is indicative of just how shitty and disjointed their economic policy or their lack thereof
that's the
insanity.
And the economy in general is just it's because wages and product don't go up with productivity at this point. We're at this I mean, some of it's AI and what have you, and we haven't taken
it's construction jobs and that kind of stuff, right?
But also just because of after all of these years of not raising, of them filibustering, raising the minimum wage, strengthening unions, all of this, we have decoupled wages from productivity. We're at the worst point since the Industrial Revolution, where the gains are going to people who are not the ones who are working their asses off at these jobs. And so the stock market, sadly, everybody's like, "Oh, the stock market's going to crash." I don't know. I mean, might, but what I know is the economy is going to crash at some point soon. But for all I know, the stock market will keep going up because they'll just keep inflating it. The people at the top will anyhow. If they pull out,
Right.
that's different. And I did see Bezos pull some money out, some other people. So maybe, but I mean, that's where we are. It's criminal how the stock market doesn't reflect our economy anymore because these people have broken it.
Right. Well, and it goes beyond that at this point. Let me show you what I'm kind of talking about with this is that there's been it's so very odd. It's that tracking point. Then Charlie Kirk, the Iran war, I would argue, was part of it. Sorry, Boston Brian. I will hopefully be able to loop back to the other point, but we've got so much we're talking about.
Boston Brian here?
Yeah, he's in the chat. He's
What's
doing
up,
a good thing.
Man?
So, yeah.
He and I were supposed to have a conversation a long time ago. We never seem to find each other.
We'll make it happen
Brian,
if it
so
just
hi.
happens here. Okay, so
I may
the
hunt you
memo.
down, dude.
Yes, the memo in question. So when this came out, nobody signed it. We find out from this article that the way Pam Bondi covered her ass is that she directed them to write up this memo basically verbally, not writing it in an email. She basically told somebody in the DOJ, draft up an email that, nothing to see here, what the president and I talked about, whoever her primary assistant was or who was just under her that does all this kind of perfunctory work, draft a memo for this, and then effectively get Cash and Bongholio to sign it. And they said no.
Of course.
Because Patel was kind of closer to doing it because he's a fucking suck up. But she was, the idea was it was like this Mexican standoff where they were all like, you sign it. No, you sign it. No, you sign it. And then nobody did. She hadn't, it was abundantly clear apparently that she had never had any intention of signing it. She was always going to release it and hang it around, their neck like an albatross. Right. Okay. So I fucking love this. So Bongholio, who, we watch Papa Stitch all the time. This is the story, and come along with me for a little bit of White House theater. The day the memo was released, Bongholio showed up to a daily Justice Department meeting with the FBI staff and the Attorney General. He was in a volcanic mood. We've seen this before,
Volcanic.
Dan Bongholio,
I just was checking out Pompeii
rage.
and Etna, and I feel like it's an insult to volcanoes to
right.
Say that.
Yes. He's the master of impotent rage. He was in a volcano. And as soon as he entered the room, he erupted at Bondi, shouting at her. You fucked this thing up from the start, Bongholio yelled. The way you've been talking about this, that dumb fucking charade with the Epstein files, the they're on my desk nonsense, all the promises to the folks out there. Patel and Bongholio both subsequently told a White House official that Bondi needed to resign. This was 2 days later, on July 9th, the two men were summoned to a meeting with Susie Wiles and Pam Bondi in the Situation Room complex. They were the last to enter the small wood-paneled room. Seated around the table were Bondi, Wiles, Blanche, and Taylor Budowich, one of Wiles' deputies. Budowich? Yeah. The moment Bongholio...
Yeah. That's just such a MAGA name.
So perfect, right. The moment Bongholio sat down, Wiles told him that she had been informed he leaked a sensitive story about Epstein and Trump to ABC News. Bongholio said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $100,000 cash right now. I'm not kidding. Walk out to West Exec, put that reporter on speaker, and get him to admit I leaked it. $100,000. Wiles snapped back, well, we all got ourselves into this. Bongholio cut her off. No. We didn't get ourselves into anything. I warned you guys about this whole time, and I warned you about this the whole time, and you ignored me. And exactly what I said was going to happen happened. And now you're pretending I was in on this. I was never in on this. Now this has a button on this that I love. Bongholio's aggressive response to Wiles startled the others. She was the White House chief of staff, essentially a stand-in for the president, which is just nonsense in a cult. There are no stand-ins. Wiles put Bongholio on the spot. Going forward, she said, we're all in. We're all going to agree to move forward. Are you in or not? No, I'm not. This is not my plan. I'm not part of this going forward. Forget it. I'm out of here. He stormed out of the Situation Room in a huff. And if he couldn't get a taxi, he could leave in a huff. Right. Onto the West Executive Avenue, where he climbed into the back of Patel's armored SUV and directed the driver to take him to FBI headquarters. Some of Bongholio's close friends hoped he would resign right then, an act of protest that would have made him a MAGA martyr and only increased his following.
A MAGA martyr. God, like the fucking
But yeah,
complex.
just the main character syndrome,
Like the
self-involved
drama.
horseshit.
And like a MAGA martyr,
But
as if like
and this
as
is
if you're fighting for some movement for like the freedom of the French from British
that's
rule. Or I mean,
right.
Jesus Christ, these people.
This is his hill to die on. Yes, but and this is a big but. White House advisors intervened, urging him to stay. If he quit over Epstein and went public, it would severely damage the president. Bongholio told associates he would remain for Trump's sake and keep pushing for more Epstein information to be released. Privately, he seethed. Like, a coward and somebody who's full of shit and who's towing the line in the face of, the not going after the cabal of pedophiles he said was everywhere and would be so easy to catch, and it would be over in a matter of days, and Trump would be the most transparent. Don't get me started. Okay, cost him millions of dollars in podcast revenue, family time, and his audience. He was getting torn apart over a strategy he had opposed from the start. I'll skip ahead to the part. Bongholio later told a confidant, Blondie, he called her Blondie. Blondie fucked this whole thing up. He later told a confidant,
I mean, where
echoing.
are we? It's like a 1950s like
It's
noir
so
detective
pitiful.
movie. I mean,
Yeah, like they all just, how much trouble we could have been saved if they all had just been added to the cast of Mad Men. Told a confidant, echoing Loomer's derisive nickname for the attorney general. She was the one on TV saying over and over they had all this stuff. There was never anything. We were always clear about that. And now everyone thinks we did something wrong, and I gave up everything. Bongholio complained that he had given up his high-rated show and millions of dollars, and now it's all disappeared because people think we screwed something up with Epstein. Bongholio paused. This is going to be President Trump's Iran-Contra. Now, it's the one part that I think he's right about. The other part, of course, that I think stands out is what a
the
fucking
difference though is Reagan got away with Iran-Contra,
right? Yeah,
and George W. Bush got away with it. The guy who's the former head of the CIA,
HW,
that he drank too much fucking iced tea and went and peed during all of the stuff, the discussions. Literally, this is real, is what he claimed under oath, because it's believable that the head of the CIA would leave when the important stuff was being discussed to go take a piss. That's believable.
And by the way,
and he pardoned Casper Weinberger and all the rest of them.
Sure. And never mind the fact that Jimmy Carter fired H.W. Bush as the head of the CIA because of the shit that they were doing. And Iran-Contra was basically him jump-starting the shit he got fired for under Reagan. And they went behind Carter's back and negotiated with the Iranians to try and, guns for, and they were going to use drugs to ultimately pay for the guns to ship them through. And that's where that whole pipeline started, was that they had to pay the piper for the deal. Keep the hostages until we get into office, and it'll make us look like the good guys, which is exactly what like Trump was doing with Netanyahu. The same 20-point plan was on the table because Biden had drafted it up, just like the JCPOA did all the work. And then Trump came in and said, we'll sign you off on the same fucking thing. You could just keep bombing for another fucking 10 months / the rest of your life. We'll just ignore it going forward. We'll pretend something happened, and then you can keep doing whatever the fuck you want. And they undermined Biden and Harris, making them look like the weak ones in this situation so that they could come in and do this. And don't get me started on Jared Kushner's situation. So that whole story that's come out also points to this thing where they had a meeting in the Situation Room about the Epstein stuff when it broke. That was headed up by J.D. Vance. And the story, like apparently Vance thinks he was murdered. And there's all these, that's what came out. And of course, whatever. Yeah, Vance, again, I will put my pin in. If I have to believe a conspiracy theory, it's that he escaped. Otherwise, I'll just go with what the main story is until I'm in a courtroom and I get to see the actual evidence.
I just can't believe J.D. Vance is saying that. I guess is the I can understand people having these kinds of theories about what went down.
Well, it's what Patel thought until he got the job.
I mean, because look, the last guy to see him was Barr. Barr's dad hired him at Dalton. I mean, there's connections there, and I can understand people being suspicious. And I assume that he committed suicide until somebody proves something else. But
Mhm.
I'm not claiming I know that for a fact, and obviously these are people that I don't trust with anything. So clearly, it could he absolutely could have been murdered. He could have escaped. There's all sorts of things. I'm just sort of shocked when people like JD Vance are saying that. I
Right.
mean,
Well, they're saying it not in public. They're saying it in this meeting. Apparently, he floated up the idea that he buys into that stuff,
no,
and that
but
he
even
found
him
it hinky.
believing it because they're all of this team, and you'd have to be so
Right.
stupid. We have a reason to believe it because we know who these people really were,
Right.
and
They
like
are
half
part
the
of that
Trump
group. Right.
that Trump half the Trump. I mean, when I said his name was Trump's name was in the Epstein files more than Jesus in the Bible, like that may sound like a fun line and a joke. That's actually true,
Yeah.
right? And Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, lived literally next door to him, so their walls touched each other. I mean, you start looking. I can understand why people like us would be suspicious that it's not,
Right.
and that. But I mean, Vance, he's like on the team. I mean, it's weird. I don't know.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
So I guess the other question is he? And at some point, he's the guy seeing Trump's fade up close, right? He's the guy
Yes.
who's, and he knows the job might be his before too long. And what he's probably negotiating in his own head is, how do I distance myself from the awful that Trump is doing and try to salvage what's left of this presidency to try and get myself elected as president in 2028, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that's all. I mean, the whole reason this person sold out. You talk about whores. Every aspect of everything that he ever claimed to stand for before Trump, everything else that this intellectual, which he wasn't, but he faked enough that he was, and this
Mhm.
guy that cared about people in his community, even though he blamed all of them for what was going on there. I mean, he was a complete fraud, but he built a brand and an image around this being this intellectual that even liberals, God, do I know so many people that bought that crappy book that was just a whole bunch of lies. Hi, folks. I'm sitting right here in Cincinnati, and I can tell you Middletown is not in Appalachia. Just FYI. It's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
He's not from Appalachia. He's a liar.
Yeah.
It's like saying, it's like saying it being from like, I don't know, like Elizabeth, New Jersey, and saying, I grew up in New York City. You didn't.
Right.
So but he had built that image, and people fell for it, and he
Right.
destroyed it all by tying himself to Trump. My guess is in his mind is he better become president now because he's thrown away every last shred of intellectual credibility.
Well, and
That's my thinking.
yes, and continuing in this, kind of Vance and how he thinks he's got to, polish his own turds in the middle of trying to figure out a way out from under this stuff. In that article, and which is a chapter again from this book, was that, and I think you remember when Vance had posted on Shitter, like, release the Epstein files, and he'd even said it to Theo Vaughn. Remember that? Okay, this is about that time. Um,
Right.
Vance also floated to colleagues an extraordinary PR gambit that the White House enlist Tucker Carlson to interview Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. And it might help the president if Maxwell was willing to state that Trump had not been part of any wrongdoing with Epstein. This was his brilliant idea. Vance told the group he believed that all the files should be released as soon as possible. He argued that Congress was going to release them anyways. It was already unclear that a bipartisan coalition in favor of such action was forming on Capitol Hill. This is before the discharge petition started to gain steam, and they were trying to, get ahead of it because shit was, this is right after the memo. If the administration got out ahead of this and released everything voluntarily, including whatever material existed about the president, it would at least get credit for transparency. The alternative was to let the story drag on for months and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then even unsubstantiated allegations and anecdotes about Trump should go out, Vance argued. They were going to surface regardless, and if the administration published them first, it would demonstrate good faith, take the oxygen out of the conspiracy theories. His arguments fell on skeptical ears. This is adorable. But some advisors thought it would be a good idea to have Justice Department officials call a news conference to explain their position on the Epstein affair, going beyond the memo that precipitated the crisis. At this point, in the meeting, Blair spoke up. With all due respect, he said, the communication strategy of this group got us here. I don't know that it's going to get us out. And if you're going to go to in front of the press, you got a lot of work to do. he began asking pointed mock questions, demonstrating how difficult a news conference would be. He was like, "Oh yeah, when did he? Trump says he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. We now know that that's not true. How could Trump do this article saying he likes him on the younger side when we have a memo from the exact same day of them flying with some girl and an article by Maximum Golf that nobody can seem to find and might be dead?" Like, that's what he was doing. He was like, let me show you what this shit would go like in your big, like, purge press conference, dumbass. And then when Blanche jumped in, and then we saw this strategy play out. Blanche suggested that they tell that they asked the court to release the grand jury testimonies around the Epstein trials and Ghislaine Maxwell stuff. And when the court refused to do it because it would be illegal, they could blame the court. We don't have to release these things. We'll act like we're going to release them. And then when the grand jury testimony can't be released because that's the law, we'll go, well, we wanted to release them. We'll hide behind them. That was Blanche's big plan. And you could argue it's still in place because the grand jury testimony still has not come out. And it is a big chunk of the stuff that, the files attached to the grand jury testimony, what they used and who spoke, and the testimony that came from employees, by the way, that were given, proffers and deals.
Right.
Those people, said a lot of shit in the grand jury testimony that wasn't in interviews with the cops or in note, because they did it on proffers with the DA's office. So it was like he knew the cover was there. Blanche knew the cover was there. And that's why Trump wants him to be the AG. I mean, it's like Bill Barr, as Trump likes to say, on steroids.
And steroids, when he was on steroids, he really liked me. He said very nice things.
Because Trump is on steroids right now, but not the kind that make you, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the kind that keep you awake and talking when you're old and on medical
maybe constipate you a little bit so you don't crap your pants every 3 hours or 2 hours or 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's a kind of a problem. So that memo cascade and that story of it coming out is exactly what I said. And you and I have talked about this before. Like that was the beginning of the end for Trump. And when Bongholio said it will be his Iran-Contra, I don't think he meant that it will be the thing that made him have to sit in front of Congress and answer a bunch of questions, because I think he's created a buffer for himself, and he'll probably, to your point, kick off before that happens. They're just trying to punt that so that he dies before he has to answer anything.
I hope he doesn't.
Yeah. And right, exactly.
Yep, I hope he doesn't. But I hope he's here and in the Hague.
But I got to tell you, I think you're alone in that in terms of...
It's too easy for him.
You know who does hope he kicks off? Susie Wiles. You know who does?
I think there are a lot of his people surrounding him who hope he does, because they realize he throws everybody under the bus. What was the dude's name? I'm trying to remember in New Jack City, Nino Brown, I think. He'll go up there like that and be like, it was him and her. It's all the people around me who did it. I didn't know what was going on. Like, he will throw them all under. So my guess is they're all hoping he's not around, let's say.
Yeah. And there are a bunch of people here, and this is, by the way, the shot where he was dozing off with his makeup covered hand on his right hand. Like it's kind of that greenish gray. And
I'd like to apologize to people because the Dolan family is from Ohio, not my part. They're from who own Madison Square Garden. In fact, a few of them have held office. One of them was the State House Speaker here. The Dolans, they're a wealthy family from Cleveland. So they're across the street from me, but I still feel responsibility, and I apologize. They suck.
Yeah, I don't blame anybody's geography. We've all had screwy neighbors. I
know.
But I got to tell you, I think
Howard Lutnick had a screwy neighbor. His name was Jeffrey Epstein.
That's right. Yeah, and Howard Lutnick not only lied about hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein at the island, which again, and going into business and charity work with him after he said I would never do business with him. He literally signed a deal like a week after that meeting happened. But he also shared a wall with him, and and Glenn Beck and others have sold this bullshit, and I showed it on my show. They've sold this idea that that Nutlick moved in first and Epstein moved in later, and he went over to meet his new neighbor, and that's when he discovered him. When Nutlick bought his house from a trust owned by Epstein. Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he bought his house from
a little bit of a delay, and I apologize because that's leading to me to talk. I apologize.
It happens. It's all right. You and I both are better in person, and I will be in the general Cincinnati area next weekend as I'm coming in from part of my dad's service at Friendship.
Sorry. Then I take back the.
That's
whatever,
but I'm glad. But I will be in the neighborhood.
Okay.
If
I can cut, and I would be willing, happy to come to you if that's easier. Like
that'd be great. I'll bring another camera to my rig, and we'll sit in my dad's old office and do a show from there. I would love to have you on for that part of it. Maybe even joining me for the radio show on Saturday, a week from this Saturday.
I do that too. I'm really enjoying. I've started to go on with my friend Richard Chew there on Chew's Views.
Oh, Richard's great. We love Richard.
Such a wonderful guy. He just
so good
in every way. I couldn't say enough positive things about him. So I want to do more of the CPT. Chicago is a great town, and I'd love to. So you let me know if you want to have me on. I'm on.
I insist. So, by the way, BlueAmp.co will take you to the Substack for Cliff Schecter and Crowd. Am I correct? Is that
you are? I'm actually putting it in the chat right now for anybody.
That's brilliant.
Who needs, this is something you'll appreciate. We today, and then I put it in on the YouTube side, the @Cliffs_Edge. Even though we've moved the branding to Blue Amp, and that will change soon too. But for now, but. As I said, I think you'll appreciate this with one of your many careers, Hal. Today we have Amy Hogarth on, who was a correspondent for Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, and she is brilliant and hilarious, and I am so excited to talk to her. So I've been on her show before, and she's funny as hell. So it's
awesome. Well, everybody check that out. BlueAmp.co will take you to will help you find all the links to get everywhere as well. I got Philip Bittner waiting in the wings. At some point,
I haven't had Philip on in too long. Say hi.
I know
to Philip and tell him
I will.
We should reach out to each other. I need to have him on. It's been maybe a year or something. I don't know. I lose track.
Yeah. It's I think it's about time ultimately, but I want to thank you for being on, and I look forward to seeing you in person next weekend, and that will help with our overlap, I guarantee, because the internet being what it is and delays being what they are, a certain amount of overlap is going to happen because of that. And you and I are the talkiest people on the internet, so that will always be an issue when you're on the show. It's like Tara Dublin is very similar in that regard as well. We're all over talkers, so together we're just like but when I sit together,
like I want people to understand, I'm not denying that I talk too much, because I do, and I apologize.
It's the name of the game, baby.
Yeah, I apologize for that sometimes, but it really isn't just that this time. It's that there's a second or two delay, and that makes it
a long
even
one today.
tougher.
It's gremlins in the interwebs. So thanks so much, Cliff, and I will take you up on that. If I would love for you to drive down to the house and come visit there, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, please just reach out to me and let me know when you're thinking, so I can make sure to plan it. But and so that I absolutely can do it. But
that'd be great.
I have kids out of town right now, so there's
might work out great.
Soccer game will come up or anything like that, and so if you reach out, you let me know when and where, so I can punch it into the little GPS and not get lost and end up, in certain parts of Kentucky where I might have to, oink like a pig.
Bang, 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 bang. Right.
But not fully, because I've been up to the hollers, and it should be the biggest example of why people who vote Republican, it's insane, because it looks like the 1850s and there's no running water, and like, how are you not voting for him? improving
Right.
your
Somebody, your
situation.
life. Yeah. Right. Well,
I
because
don't
again, you're made to feel responsible for it, even though it's really because you live downstream from a coal plant that's been poisoning your water and making your kids be born with
exactly.
birth
And I'm
difficulties.
sure that the
With
billionaire
birth,
predator classes, I
sorry,
call them, have
did I say
investigated because
difficult?
they
Yeah.
all do.
Yeah. Birth defects. So,
Okay, I'll go.
I
Let
will,
me let you get
yes.
Philip
Awesome.
on. I'm taking Philip's time away from him, so I'm out.
No worries. Thank you so much. And we will do this. We'll make this by hook or by crook, and we'll at least hang out and have coffee also while I'm in town as best we can. So awesome. Thank you so much, Cliff.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Thanks for having
Appreciate
me
it.
on, and thanks everybody.
Absolutely. All right, there we go. And now,
Time for a shameless plug. Oh yeah, it's shameless plug time.
all right. So while we're at it, if I may, clear that out of there. Get out of there, you silly thing. Nerd Halen is this Friday at the Ritz in San Jose. And also coming up, this is, by the way, I can do this so I can bring Phil in. And let's see, move him to the proper while this is happening. If you feel like coming down, we'd love to have you. And of course, Denver, Colorado will be the 31st of July. I will have that up very soon as well. I don't know why my little like menu thing moves to a different screen every time. So hold on. Philip Ittner. There you go. And we also have a Sexy Liberal show that is coming very soon. Very exciting. This is me doing clerical work while I'm promoting because I can't do it all by itself. There we go. Whoops. There you go. In that we have, where is it? I'm gonna go back to here. Yeah, I'll just post it up later. I'll do another shameless plug for the Sexy Liberal thing at the end of the show. But in the meantime, this Friday, also, if you're in LA, King's X is going to be playing the Whiskey on Saturday, and I would love to be there. I will see if I can be. I don't know if I will because family and stuff, but we will do our best. And welcome to the show, Philip Ittner, joining us live from Kyiv, where he has power, even though they've been really slammed lately. First of all, how are you doing? Give us the update on what's going on there. Can you hear me okay? And all's well?
Yeah, no, I actually for the last 10 days or so, it hasn't been that bad in Kiev.
Okay.
We had the occasional thing now and again. We've had some probing attacks, but nothing like what happened on the 2nd. That was the real intense attack. But you know, they'll do it again at some point, I'm sure. The bigger news here is that it does seem like there's some progress for the Ukrainians down in the southeast, heading towards Crimea. They've blocked off another access point between occupied Ukraine. There's this little section of the embankment on the right side of the river of the Dnipro, just south of a town that's occupied called Mykolaiv. And that is, there's about a couple hundred yards, like 2-3 football fields between that part of the shoreline, and then from the Kherson Oblast, which is connected to Crimea, there's this outjutting of a spit. It's a spit. I don't know if folks are familiar with the geological term or geographic term. It points out into the water, and it's very thin. You can see it right down there, actually, right down in Kherson Oblast.
Yeah.
And then go over to Mykolaiv. You see that red part? You're almost there. Go a little to the left. Go a little west. Right
This
there.
part.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, or it might be the other one below it. But that's basically the idea. Is that there's this very thin outjutting, and there's a national park there and stuff.
Right.
And we know that the Russians have withdrawn their troops from there. The bridge, there's a very, very small bridge, because again, we're not talking about a large stretch of water that is there. That apparently has been hit by Ukrainian forces. because Ukraine doesn't have troops that are there. It's in the oblast where they have
Right.
troops. It's just on the other side of that little couple 100-yard gap there where they've withdrawn. So it looks like it's another way in which they're starting to cut off support to the Crimean Peninsula, which is, in a lot of ways, it's the whole ball of wax. So
Right.
we'll see. I mean, the Russians, on the other hand, on the opposite side of the equation, do seem to be making some progress towards one of the fortress cities, the kind of most westerly fortress city, Kupiansk, is under threat. But look, people are making much more out of a couple kilometers towards Kupiansk than I think it deserves. And again, I've been out to those fortress cities, and I've been to smaller cities that they fought over. I was in Chasiv Yar. I was in a couple of the other little towns and things like that. They fight for months over places that are built for 20,000 people,
Right.
sort of thing, 40,000 people. Kupiansk was built for, I think we're probably edging up towards the 100,000 person mark. It's a much larger city. It's very much industrialized. That's why it's called a part of the Fortress City network. There's a chain of cities that go at the very kind of border between Donbass and kind of Kharkiv, and then some open ground that leads to the capital. And the fear is that if the Russians can get a toehold in one of these cities, that they'll be able to kind of wrap up through the other cities. And I think that is a completely bogus concept as well. I don't think that tactical will work as well. And you can't leave it in the rear either. So they have to take the entire ring, they have a string of fortress cities, and they just don't have the manpower to do it. They certainly don't have the manpower to do it by the end of fighting season, the good weather, as we go into summer here.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it starts to rain again and everything turns to mud, there is no way they're going to take those towns. I don't even think they're going to take Kupiansk. I think Kupiansk is if anything, we are at the very, very beginning stages of an extremely long campaign to take that city. That city alone, much less the other cities that are connected in the fortress string, the fortress city string. So anyhow, there's good news on the Ukrainian side. There's good news for them, bad news for Ukraine on the Russian side. But I think the threat that Ukraine is posing to Russia currently, which is to say, really calling into question whether or not they can achieve their strategic goals, and that is Crimea is intrinsic to that, and they're really starting to put some pressure on supporting Crimea. I mean, we know there are gas shortages already happening on the peninsula. They can't get their military in, so that means they can't fire from Crimea, which has really been a problem, especially for Kiev and for Odessa in particular, because of the proximity. The Ukrainians, I think, are getting to a point where they're going to start putting intense pressure on the peninsula. There's there's rumors in the wind of now might be the time that they take down the Kursk Bridge. The capability to do that or not do that is really not in question. The Ukrainians can take down the Kursk Bridge if they want to, and that would cut them off from mainland Russia by sea. And then if they can cut them off from land by land, the land route, Crimea is not self-sustainable. It will be, the only option, I suppose, will have to be airlifts and things like that, or ferries across the Strait of
which again make them do it. Like again, slows down the process. Right.
Ferries, absolutely, and also undeniable to the Russians that they're losing this war.
Mm-hmm.
And how much longer do they want to keep trying to fight this war? I mean, I know people when I have friends who are Russians from when I lived back in Moscow, and at least a couple of them had their summer cottages on the lake, on the water,
Right.
down in a town called Feodosia. Feodosia is kind of this middle class resort town where if you were part of the Russian middle class, which is a very small strata of society, you could afford to buy a little nice place to go in the summer and the spring, be on the
Mhm.
water, you know, have a little patio and, eat al fresco and all the rest of it.
Right.
Really indulgent, but, and then also there are military guys that are there as well. So, Crimea is going to be a sticky issue no matter what happens because there is a large Russian population. And does Ukraine want to be an occupier? Ultimately, my opinion, my personal opinion, and having spoken to people from Crimea, at the end of the day, the peninsula belongs to the Crimean Tatars, the original inhabitants,
Mhm.
the indigenous population of the peninsula. And the Tatars have been treated horribly throughout their entire history of living under Moscow's yoke. I mean, they were deported in mass by Stalin. Like the entire population of the Crimean Tatars were sent to Siberia, out to Irkutsk, near Lake Baikal, or sent to Central Asia. And some of them didn't get back until two or so generations ago. Um, the peninsula belongs to them more than anybody else. And the Moscow has been horrible to them. They destroy their architecture. They forbid the use of their language. There's a autonomous governance body called the Mejlis. These are Muslim Turkish people. They have their own parliament called the Mejlis. It has disappeared. We do not, in large scale, we do not know where they are. Some of their leaders are here in Kiev or in a diaspora, but a lot of them have just, we don't know where they are because they are
Right.
being rounded up as we speak. So Moscow has treated them horribly. Kiev has had a very kind of contentious relationship with the Tatars, but during Poroshenko's period of prime minister, they marched on the capital in Crimea. They marched on Sevastopol, and they protested for the reestablishment of this and the autonomy, and to be given powers to this independent legislative body. And Kiev begrudgingly, admittedly, but ultimately at the end of the day said yes.
Right.
So many Crimean Tatars that I speak to are of the mind that we would much rather be part of Ukraine than we would be part of Russia, because at least the Ukrainians let us be who we are. They don't try to destroy our language, our culture,
Right.
our architecture, whatever. But the
Right.
Russians do, because that's what the Russians do. That's what the Russians are trying to do in Ukraine as a whole.
Right.
So, the Crimean Tatars ultimately, I think, are the ones who should take over majority control of the peninsula. But it's going to be tricky. It's going to be a hard fight. It might have to be a siege, and you kind of starve out the peninsula, which would be very difficult, not very pleasant. Um,
Right.
Fighting for it would then look into an occupation. Do Ukrainians want to be an occupying power? Do they want to have that perception? All these kinds of things. But for my mind, ultimately, I think it should be given back to the Tatars. But we'll see. We'll see.
Right.
This is a big part of the war, is what happens to Crimea.
This is a current state of the war as of June 9. This is the latest stuff that I have from yesterday or whatever. So far in this situation, 1.3 million troops dead or injured, removed from the battlefield.
And 65% of them, we just learned, 65% of them are dead. 35%, which is an opposite any other fighting force in any modern army in the world. Those numbers would be reversed. So it shows you their tactics as well. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that I think stands out in this is if you look at vehicles and fuel tanks here, that it's 104,382 yesterday alone. This speaks to, and the artillery, they've lost 75. Russians have lost 75 in the last 24 hours. This is about fire control of those roads, of the R280 and the other conduits that go to Crimea, like you were talking about, that there's a big shift away from, yes, there's a lot of dead troops. And yes, they're still removing fighters from the battlefield. But a big portion of this is eliminating supply chains. That deep strike technique that the NATO uses and the Western countries uses, that Ukraine has started using, about going after the supply chain for the war machine itself, is becoming increasingly effective. Now, granted, some of these 1370 troops right here would be the 8 guys working around a truck full of gas, or 6 guys working on a delivery vehicle, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and guys riding alongside it. Those kind of things. So there's clearly an overlap in some of this as well, in terms of, because the normal fighting force guys that die is about 1,200 a day. That's been the average, which is enormous. And the injured guys, are the guys who are, again, in motorcycles riding along next to the supply trucks, whose job it is, by the way, these are African troops by and large, and Korean troops, whose job it is to ride alongside the supply trucks on motorcycles and try to draw autonomous drones away from the truck and become the target. They are told to ride off into the field essentially and get blown up. And I can't show the footage of that happening, but it's all over the Telegram channels that deal with this stuff. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen some of it as well. And it's grotesque. It's
I've done more than that. I've spoken to people who target those guys.
Right.
And I just 2 weeks ago I had a guy on who kills those guys. He's a drone operator, and he says they just send them out. And the weird thing, he pointed out to me that for him, he really couldn't get he was a Marine, veteran Marine, U.S. Marine. And he said he couldn't get it out. He couldn't get out of his mind and get into the mind of the Russians, where they would think that that's an effective technique, where you can see 3 kilometers down the road a vehicle that's been destroyed by a drone or a mine or an anti-tank weapon, a manpad, or whatever it is. But your orders are, well, okay, now you go the next 3 kilometers down until you get destroyed. And then we'll send another guy in a fast-moving vehicle to get, and we'll just keep trying, and we'll probe, and we'll do it. And it's not effective. More than anything else, it's not effective. And so this guy was sitting there, and he's sitting there looking at what's called the Delta system, which is this innovative drone operating system, which is almost like a Zoom call. And you have all your different assets and all your different types of drones with different payloads and capacity and location and all the rest of it. And you're looking at this pad, you're looking at an iPad or a tablet. It's a Zoom, and you can either set something for targeting later, or you can go and send the appropriate drone to hit that guy. So it's this kind of warfare of probing and just wasting men going forward, because the Ukrainians by the end of the year expect to have made 7 million drones in 2026 alone, and in 2027 they hope to increase that by a 10% or at very least threshold, and probably even higher than that. They're going to keep developing drones, and it's just not going to work. Even if Russia does have a new mobilization, which would be disastrous for Putin, the lay of the land now is that Ukraine has the wind at its sails. They're the ones that have the momentum. And in war, sometimes momentum is a weapon of its own. And so, I've spoken to guys who are in the military. I have 2 very close friends, associates, whatever, colleagues. My editor was called up. I have a friend that I've known for 2.5 decades, who's a tech developer. He was called up, and they're being called up to do drone warfare.
Yeah.
And both of these guys have tried for various reasons. One, my friend who does the drone development or IT development, he was actually trying to work on a way of pursuing Russian war criminals. So he felt that was very important, and he was trying to avoid getting conscription. The other guy has a 2-year-old, less than 2-year-old infant son, and he was working with me on the show. And also, there's been a problem with conscription because the military has seen the Ukrainian military has some very serious flaws in it. And it's a layover from the Soviet period, and it's still there's corruption, and it's still and also there, like in any military, there's incompetence and problems and all the rest of it. But now that it looks like the worm is turning, my friends have been, my friends, associates, colleagues, whatever, have been far more open to the idea of like, well, look, if I choose to go into a drone unit now, I won't have to maybe be conscripted into an infantry unit, which is not awful, but far more hazardous than being a drone operator.
Right.
And so they're willing, when they get called up, they don't try to resist it. They don't try and delay it. They now have started to turn to, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And if I'm going to be brought up, this is what I'd rather do. I'd rather be in a drone unit. And so
yeah,
that's what they're joining. But the mood has changed, and the atmosphere has changed, and it's clear that Russia is on its back foot.
Yes, and I would argue that if you're going to show up at a recruitment center, if you're Ukrainian, wear "I paused my game for this" shirt, or some sort of like, any major gamer logo that you possibly can, short of Atari, and they'll go, I've got just the job for you, my friend. I will say in relation to this, and we will get to the more serious aspects of this, but I have to share this story, even if it's just puffery.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians used a giant spider drone to evacuate a cat and her 5 kittens from one of the areas. They found this cat and 5 kittens, and when they were sending the drone back, the supply drone back, they basically put them in a basket underneath the thing, like wrapped them up, and sent them back away from the front line where they were starving and in danger. And this is like, but this would be Bucky approved. They used a vampire drone to evacuate a cat and their 5 kittens, and they called it Operation Meow Meow. This was the 118th Separate Mechanized Brigade on June 8th. So again,
does that sound like a military that's about ready to break?
Yeah, exactly.
It's on they're out there doing things like saving kittens and cats.
Right. Yeah. Like
I'm not really worried. I'm not really worried of like a sudden immediate collapse in the lines.
Yeah. They're airlifting kittens out of the danger zone. Also,
if they can do that, they can kill Russians.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And again, there's no reason why a supply drone has to go back empty-handed. That's a great use of it. I'm sure they send notes and mail and stuff back home and that kind of stuff when they write letters and whatever. They put them in the supply drone and send it back. Is what they use them for, right? And kittens right inside that. So there is a big story, around the kind of soft power manipulation that you and I've talked about Russia trying to involve itself in other elections and like not just our own here in the United States supporting Donald Trump. But interestingly enough, telling Orban he should fake an attempted assassination to help himself get elected because it worked with one of their other friends, apparently. And those kind of stories. And they tried to manipulate the election in Armenia recently and failed. And now they are trying to delegitimize them by, pushing these stories that they're rigged elections. There are these rigged elections in Armenia, right? Sound familiar? And Trump did this weird thing with Kristen Welker where he kept saying like you have fake elections.
I noticed that as well.
And it sounded like he was incapable of converting the pronoun from what Putin had said to him or was telling him to say. Right? It was super odd. But anyways, the group
that would explain it, because I noticed that as well. I was like, no, there are elections. There are elections. What is this?
Right.
You have elections that are.
Yeah.
Like,
why are you not saying we? Like you have to straighten out your press and you have to straighten out your. It sounds like MBS and Putin are telling Trump, like, you've got to straighten, your elections are rigged, that, and because they're lying to him, right? So if Putin wanted to bullshit Trump, he's not going to go, hey man, rig your election, because Trump's so bad as an actor and can't remember his lines and shits his pants all the time that he would blurt that out. So what Putin would say is, your elections are rigged, you win everywhere, and they're stealing it from you. Like, they're bullshitting him to give him that, to wind him up and set him loose. And the same thing is true about, like, you have to get your press in order. Your press is coming after us. And between MBS, Netanyahu, and Putin, that's how they talk to him. He's just blurting out the exact phrases they said to him because he's got no filter anymore because his brain is cottage cheese. So, but it was Nicole Pashinyan, I think it is, the Armenian Civil Contract Party, which sounds a lot like Contract with America / Democratic Socialists / regular Democrats, like America First mixed with we've got to start building things up at home crowd in Armenia. And no surprise, Russia was trying to run interference on that so that they would continue to be one of the satellite states of Russia. And so they're doing this whole, like, your elections are rigged to the Armenian leadership to try and get them to push back on this. And you're seeing this in a bunch of countries where they're losing, I think it might be a financial constraint. Like, they no longer can pay people what they used to. They have to give them, they're back to giving Candace Owens free tours of the city. And travel packages, to get her on board, as opposed to just gold bricks, which is what they used to do, or the tenant media payments. It seems like they're running out of money to pay their satellites in the same way that kind of Iran is as well. With it, but they've got true believers, so they're not really, those people keep fighting with whatever they have with them, unlike Russia. So there's sort of these two big kind of foreign stories, is Trump talking like that and them basically saying that to Armenia as well, like trying to push back on any elections that they used to have a grip over, I guess.
Yeah, well, they've always had Armenia and Azerbaijan for Moscow. They've always played both sides against each other. So there have been times in the past when they've been close to Armenia. There have been times in the past when they've been close to Azerbaijan. I think the Azeris are increasingly becoming connected more to Ankara than they are to Moscow. Armenia, it's tricky, but I don't think they look at Moscow as a reliable partner in any way, shape, or form. There have been times in the past when Yerevan has looked to Moscow for negotiation over this little enclave called Nagorno-Karabakh, which they've fought wars over with Azerbaijan several times. And I also think, and also you have to throw Georgia into the mix there as well. The Caucasus right now are a bit of a mess because they're waking. Again, look, this is another reason why Ukraine is so important to Moscow, is because if they lose Ukraine, then their concept of being an empire starts to shatter. And you have all their former colonies will then follow Ukraine's lead and say, we're not going to be under Moscow's dominion anymore, especially the Georgians. And so, as I said, at the very beginning of the war, the real big crisis, I think, will be when Moscow loses this war, because they built themselves, not only since Putin, but during the Soviet Union, during the empire. It's always been centralized. Everything's been, the center of gravity has been Petersburg or Moscow, whichever, wherever the capital is being held.
Right.
And everything leads to that place. All roads
Right.
lead to Moscow, is the old saying.
Mhm.
And that's going to shatter when Ukraine becomes sovereign, because there's so much of this, and I could go on for much longer and give you a whole back dissertation about this. But one of the reasons why Ukraine is so important is because Moscow has to be unipolar. Moscow has to be the one that dictates what it is to be Slavic, what it is to be Orthodox, to be part of the empire, and identify as being part of the empire. And if they lose that, or if there is a dispute, if Ukraine becomes truly sovereign and is able to contrast with what Moscow says it is to be Slavic Orthodox, part of a
Right.
community, whatever it is, then it will call into question their ultimate dominion. And that means that other, republics and other former colonies, the colonies in the Caucasus, but I even think republics within the Federation are going to start to, many of them out in Central Asia and the kind of farther east republics, they might start looking to China. They probably will. I know China is looking at them. It's just, Russia is too big. It's too big of a country. And that also, I've heard arguments made that actually also might bind them together, because some of these far-flung republics cannot operate independently. They don't have access to the sea. They don't have infrastructure funding. They're out in really inhospitable lands. They need to bind together. So there is an argument that because it's so large, that some republics will find benefit in staying together.
Mm-hmm.
But on the fringes of it, I absolutely think there's a possibility that we start to see fraying, not only within states that used to be, as I say, colonies within the empire or Soviet republics, but I think also republics that are within the Russian Federation as it stands now.
Right.
It's this thing. I am starting to get to a point where I'm really feeling much more comfortable. There have been times when Russian forces have approached this strategic asset or that strategic asset. They've never really threatened anything fundamental, but I've always felt that once
certainly not since day 6.
Yeah, since 22, when they pushed them out. Since 22, when they pushed them off from the offensive into Kiev, into the capital, and they stopped them at Kherson and repelled them Kherson, which is the city you need to take if ultimately you're going to take Odessa. You can't take Odessa if you don't have Kherson, because Kherson in your rear as you're trying to take Odessa, no dirty jokes, please, is you can't hold Odessa if Kherson is still in question, because they can snipe at you and attack your supply lines and all the rest of it. So if they don't have Kherson, they're not going to take Odessa. If they can't take Odessa, they don't have dominion of the Black Sea, which is an incredibly devastating blow, again, to their sense of self as empire. They've lost their Baltic Sea because Finland and the Swedes have now joined NATO, and so the Baltic Sea is now a NATO sea. So in one fell swoop, Vladimir Putin has lost half of his warm water port capacity. I mean, this is a dream of Peter the Great that has influenced their foreign policy and their use of military force for centuries. I mean, the Soviet Union fought. Do you know why the Soviet Union fought in Afghanistan, Hal? Have you ever looked into that? It's because they were headed to a warm water port called Gwadar. Mm-hmm. And Gwadar is officially part of Pakistan, but it's right outside the frontier area that lies between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And what the Soviets, in a last-ditch effort to try and survive, because they were getting absolutely blown away in the arms race and all the rest of it, the Cold War, they were losing the Cold War. they got into Afghanistan to try and thrust through, pacify Afghanistan, and then stretch a little bit further into Pakistan, maybe have a little border war with Pakistan, and you
Right.
get to a warm water port. That's what motivated them to invade Afghanistan, which only hastened the demise of the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
It's always been about trying to get warm water ports because
Right.
Russia wants to be an international global empire seafaring power. It wants to compete with the Brits and the Americans and to a certain degree the French and all the
Right.
rest of it. But they don't have warm water ports, and now they've lost two of their most important ones in one fell swoop. Putin will fight to the very last until he gets a severe case of lead poisoning or whatever, because he knows that if he wins this war, I would argue when he wins this war, that he's going to get killed. He won't. You don't leave a czar alive.
You mean when he loses
to
it?
go to?
Right.
Yeah, when he loses this war, Russians
Yeah.
can put up with almost anything from a czar except for losing a war. That's what took out Nicholas. Afghanistan, as I said, was a huge part of the Soviet Union falling apart. Losing
Right.
wars are the only thing that the Russians really take to heart when it comes to control from Moscow. And they're going to lose. And this is going to be, not only is this going to be a lost war, Afghanistan was a little
Yeah.
war, and it was very far away, and it wasn't really consequential at all. They didn't lose a lot of people in Afghanistan, enough, but it wasn't. This has been disastrous, and Ukraine is so integral to their identity
Yeah.
that, I mean, he's done. He's done. Putin is absolutely screwed when he loses this war, because he can't just get kicked out of power, go to his little mansion, his dacha, his villa in Sochi,
Right.
because whoever comes into power next in Moscow will not abide a former czar sitting there in Sochi in his villa, still around, still drawing breath, because he's always going to be a threat.
Right.
So, this is one of the reasons why, unfortunately, and I'll round up with this, and you can ask me any question or whatever you want to.
Yeah.
But the reason why I've been saying for so long is, and I'm convinced of it now more than ever, is that the conclusion of this war has already been determined.
Yeah.
Ukraine will come out ascendant. Ukraine, this war has been so devastating that I hesitate to use win and lose. But Ukraine will be sovereign. It will have the bulk of its territory. It will have defense guarantees. It will have its own domestic military industrial complex. It will have one of the best armies in the world. And I'm not being hyperbolic. They will be one of the best militaries in the world, certainly in Europe. And Russia will be in disarray. It will lurch from crisis to crisis. And I don't know what it's going to look like either. But I know that Ukraine is going to come out of this in a far better position than Russia is. And that is unless something absolutely extraordinary happens, that you can take that to the bank.
Yep.
And my feeling is that we should get on board. And I know there's legislation that's going to be going to the Senate, already passed through the Congress. I have arguments with colleagues and friends about whether or not it'll get vetoed, and whether or not that even if it does get vetoed, can they override his veto? And I don't know. We'll see how it goes, because Trump is clearly, aside from being mush brained, is compromised by Putin. So we will have to see. But ultimately, it's not really going to matter, because Ukraine has already won this war in many different ways. So we're headed in that direction. We should get on board and be on the winning side, because not only is it right, but it's just everybody. You want to be on the right side of history, don't you?
Agreed. I mean, I don't know that Trump cares. I think he wants monuments after him, and he doesn't care whether they are vilified or not. Like he looks at Confederate monuments. He looks at Confederate monuments and goes, well, there's still a statue. Fuck you. Like, he doesn't care why the statue is there. He just wants it. Even if you're just there because, dear God, we're all afraid to take the statue down. I would argue he's actually more for those kind of statues than the ones that are put there because out of respect. He's more envious of the ones that are of Kim Jong-un or people like that, and pictures of fucking Saddam Hussein on walls of places than he is of people like, we really do revere that person. He'd rather you be afraid to take them down because the person's supporters will kill you, or he will if he's still around. The issue that he has, though, is that number is diminishing by the hour, especially as we looked at the cost of living in the United States, the obvious lie about no new wars, the Epstein files, all the stuff that's stacking up, the death by 1,000 slashes that he's finally being, starting to experience. There was a bombing in Moscow yesterday, day before yesterday, whatever, whenever it reached us.
General.
Yeah, that killed a general by blowing up. This car was parked next to his or was there when he drove by. It blew up when he went by. And what really stood out to me was what this general did. We've seen attacks on what would effectively be the chemical weapons and biological weapons, parts of universities in the early parts of the war. Remember a couple of years ago, they were hitting the floors on, of these schools and universities that were part of this. And it wasn't the Ukrainians per se. It was like Ukrainian sympathizers inside Russia that were doing this. And we don't know who this is because it's unknown. But the guy that was killed is the key part in this. This is Colonel Damir Davidov. His gig was responsible for supplying missile and artillery ammunition to the front. This is the key part of this. This is a big aspect of where that those deep strike plans that the Ukrainians have moved to, which is just, this is all about the supply chain. And this guy was the coordinator for it. And the way Russia, runs, I'm sure there's still a certain amount of graft going on that this dude didn't write everything down. So even if there is somebody to step into his place, it's going to take them a few days, if not a few weeks, to get up and running, which is a benefit to the Ukrainians in this war. It also doesn't mean taking out other civilians. It didn't mean taking out other, even the troops this guy is responsible for supplying, right? This is a leadership kill as opposed to just killing the grunts on the ground who are, told basically run into that field, and if you turn around, we're going to shoot you.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a moment in time when, you've had Zelensky, Defense Minister Fedorov, and the head of Ukrainian intelligence, General Budanov. All of them have come out and publicly said, this is not, and we have to take advantage of the momentum that we have and really push that this could be an absolutely pivotal moment in time in the war, that while they have all of this at their back and they're making progress, that they push on it. And and it's the medium range capacity, which is destroying their supply line, which weakens their frontline capacity, so the Ukrainians can continue to move forward. They push into areas weakened by lack of supply, and then you just push back and start hitting the supply lines that now exist, in a kind of a further medium range area. And then all at the same time, you're blowing up long range stuff to hit them where the money is, with their fossil fuel, natural gas and petroleum and all the rest of it. Their shadow fleet. If we had, and this is one of my major complaints about the Biden administration, and I recognize why they did this, and I have understanding that both Biden and Blinken were very much afraid of undue escalation that would have the Russians responding. I get that mentality. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. But had we been far more supportive, in the I guess it would have been the 24 offensive. We could have been here back then, and it
Right.
just would have meant that a lot less Ukrainians would have been dead. I don't really care about
Agreed.
the Russians dead, but
Right. Neither
if,
do they.
you know, neither do they. And if you're on Ukrainian soil, you're in Russian uniform, and you're carrying a weapon, then I have absolutely no sympathy for you.
Mhm.
So, but this could have been done earlier if the Biden administration had been a little bit more gutsy and proactive. I get why they didn't do it. I really do. But and I think even part of Trump was part of the equation because they didn't want to overextend aid to Ukraine, have there be some sort of god awful response from the Russian side, and then that affects the election. Well, it turns out the election didn't go the Democrats' way anyhow. So hindsight is 2020. But regardless, we could have been here back then if the United States had just flooded this place with weapons as they should have. But look, we are here now, and we are, and maybe when we look back in the long arm of history, when this thing is really, really documented, and it's 20 years later, and we look back, maybe it was a good thing that
they didn't escalate. They didn't do that.
That Ukraine was forced to build its own domestic military industry. So now it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does. It doesn't matter, if the Americans give the Bradleys or the Patriots or the Abrams or whatever it is, the F-16s, they'll find a substitute or they'll make one of their own. So,
yeah,
I mean, I kind of feel bad in saying that because I know how many Ukrainians have died. Yeah, but now they've gotten to a place where they recognize that America is not necessarily a reliable partner, and so while they're happy to keep getting assistance from the United States, they know that if push comes to shove, they can either do it, themselves, which is the most important, the best way to do it, or if ultimately they have to, they can get it from their European partners. I mean, the Gripen air platform, the multi-use fighter plane, the Generation 4 fighter plane. It's that's a wonderful replacement for the F-16 because it's much lower maintenance. You can fly it you can take off and land from highways. You don't need tarmac. You don't need an airfield. You can carry all sorts of different weaponry on it. So, look, as horrible as it has been from 24, 25, and now into 26, Ukraine today is a much stronger entity than it was back in 23 when it really did need U.S. assistance. And so, again, I think it comes back to the point I made earlier. The result of this war is predetermined. Unless something absolutely extraordinary happens and totally unexpected, this is only going one way, and it is to the end result that I already described in that Ukraine comes out of this sovereign and whole and strong, and Russia spins out into absolute chaos.
Right.
So anyhow, we'll see. That's where we are on the front lines as well.
Yeah. And the European Union just released their 21st run of sanctions against Russia. I can bring those up. This is their message from them. Hold on.
Yes, Kaja Kallas, the whole brick by brick. Yeah.
So this is pretty reassuring in this regard. Brick by brick, we are collapsing the foundations of Russia's war economy. She said, according to Kallas, the package includes a temporary freeze on the Russian oil price cap, so it can't move around, and even if Trump wants to move it, he can't because the Europeans will do the sanctions as well, and they're just as valuable, if not more so right now. And designations of institutions used by Moscow to generate revenues and circumvent EU sanctions. It will target banks, weapon manufacturers, oil traders, refineries, and crypto operators in third countries. The commission proposes imposing an asset freeze on close to 90 banks and additional transaction bans on over 30 banks in Russia and other third countries. The EU will also tighten its ban for crypto asset services to certain third countries, add new designations, and ban transactions on 11 crypto platforms, which is another, one of the reasons why you've seen this like wild fluctuation in crypto over the last few months is that Russian oligarchs and Chinese oligarchs as well have been doing this, where this is their way of sneaking their money out of the country before shit hits the fan. Well, that's run dry. They've already done it. That operation, flight risk or whatever, where they've taken their shit and turned it into crypto and moved it to the Bank of Cyprus or wherever they're moving it to, has already finished. It finished arguably last fall. And the rest of them, if you're behind the eight ball now and stuck with your money in the country, you're just done, and they know it. Or the country knows where your money is, and if you try to move it, they'll round you up and beat the shit out of you in China, or they'll kill you in Russia. So, so the crypto is taking a giant shit because that's really that's its fourth functional usage, which is evacuating your money from a failing totalitarian state, is the way you do it. The rest of it is just for trading in guns, drugs, and children. Energy sales keep Russia's war machine running. We want to cut this cash flow, Callas said. Our work on curbing the operations of Russia's shadow fleet continues with 30 new vessels sanctioned, proposals for new designations of enablers, and the expansion of our criterion for vessel listings. By the way, awesome for proper use of the word criterion instead of criteria. Any ship supplying or refueling blacklisted ships will be exposed to sanctions itself. So they are not softening their response at all. 2 Russian ports and 4 airports will also face transaction bans, so your boat can't stop there and pick shit up and leave. In the new package, it's also targeting companies providing support to the Russian military-industrial complex, which I would guess would include Trump Media and Technology Group. The new listings will cover more than 30 designations in the drone manufacturing sector. That's Chinese companies as well, and new export control measures on 50 companies, including entities based in China, Turkey, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, UAE, and India. The EU will also restrict the export of additional materials and technologies such as nickel powders, metal, and high-performance alloys to further disrupt Russia's production capacity. This would be the not-so-rare earths or borderline rare earths, but all good stuff and all necessary stuff.
Yeah, and you'll notice that they aren't mentioning any great industries. Like, we're also going to stop the export of Russian cars and tractors and refrigerators because they don't do any of that.
Right.
All they do is rip stuff out of the ground and sell it. That's their capacity. That's all they are. So
resource capitalism at its worst.
It is. Right. It is very good to see. I'm a fan of Kaja Kallas. I think she's been great this entire time.
Yeah, agreed.
So it's good, and it's good to see the European Union getting a spine, and you know that they're being effective as well because the Russians are squealing like stuck pigs. They are furious about this. They are absolutely furious, and the fact that every time a country seizes one of these banned tankers, they lose their mind. There aren't a lot of them. There are only like 30 or 50 of these ships. If they could do this, they could shut down or significantly decrease the capacity of the shadow fleet, and then it's done. It's done. It's just, look, again, the momentum is on Ukraine's side. The West is going to win this war. Russia, it was a stupid idea to do this. And it was absolutely tragic for everybody involved. And it all lays down to Putin and his idea and his fellow, kind of Russian imperialists and his rich buddies in that echelon of power, the Siloviki in Russia, and they ruined their country. And before I let you go, I know we're closing up. I mean, when the war started, literally the first few days of the war when it started, I'm sure I've mentioned him to you before, but my favorite Ukrainian Russian imperial painter is a guy by the name of Ilya Ripin. He did one of my favorite paintings is the response of the Zaporizhian hetman, the Cossacks to the Sultan, which is just basically them writing a bunch of rude insults to the Sultan. It's a great painting. But he has another painting which I posted like the third day of the full-scale invasion. I was still in California, trying to get on a Lufthansa flight because there's COVID still.
Yep.
I didn't have a recent enough test. And I posted the picture of another painting by Rippin called "The Death of the Tsarevich," which depicts Ivan the Terrible, Ivan IV, Ivan Grozny, killing his only son, his inheritor, his heir, and realizing that he has killed not only his son but his nation, because then it turns into there is no heir, and there's hundreds of I think it goes over a century of the time of troubles in Russia, where everybody was fighting one another for dominion of the Kremlin, take control of the Kremlin. And I pointed out the fact that, yeah, there it is right there. And that's Ivan is Vladimir Putin. He is, by invading Ukraine, he's killing that which he says he loves, and that is the Russian Empire. It's done. It was the dumbest, one of the most idiotic decisions in Russian history. I would argue even worse than the Russo-Japanese War, or when Tsar Nicholas took direct command over the Russian army during World War I. This is disastrous, absolutely disastrous.
Right.
So, we'll see how it goes. And in the meantime, a wounded animal that's when he's most dangerous. So we're going to get pelted, I'm sure, but it's worth it. At the end of the day, we're gonna win this war. The West and Ukraine in particular, but the West in total. And then we'll see what happens to, maybe once Putin is in the ground, we really get a post-mortem on what happened in 2016 and can recognize that Trump has been, acting in the Kremlin's interest more than our own for his entire time in power. It's all crumbling. Autocracies, the pushback against autocracies is in full effect, and I think we're going to be okay. I'm starting to feel a little bit less burdened.
Yeah.
I think I might be able to go home
glad.
before too long.
Oh, that would be lovely. I know you would be welcome again, and I can't wait to eat at another Ukrainian restaurant with you in Chicago in the very near future. We'll make the trip happen. So I appreciate you being on. We're a little bit over time or whatever.
Sure.
I'm going to let you go.
A little bit over. Sorry about that.
Please be safe.
I
will see you. Yep, and I will see you on Saturday.
We already filmed our episode for this week, so we're definitely publishing this week.
Great.
It'll
Awesome.
be a good one too. Good conversation. All
Appreciate
right,
it.
I'll
Okay.
let you go.
All right.
Thanks,
All right.
Al.
Cheers.
All right. Take care.
Absolutely.
All
Okay,
right.
there you go.
All right. Bye-bye.
For a shameless plug. Oh yeah, it's shameless plug time.
So this weekend again, San Jose. We're coming your way. You know it. You love it, Nerd Halen. And also, this just in, October 24th, 2026, the first show added. We're going to add more. If you guys call into Steph's show, badger her. I insist. But this is the first one added at the Saban Theater in Beverly Hills, which is, it's really West Hollywood. I mean, where it is, it's at La Cienega in Wilshire. I mean, calm down. No one in Beverly Hills Cop or Pretty Woman got anywhere near the Saban Theater in those movies. So just saying, but it's lovely. It's a nice area. It's fine. A couple of nice restaurants nearby. It's terrific. But anyways, October 24th, get your tickets now at sexyliberal.com. And hopefully that will, especially if it sells out early, it will convince them more of this shoe. So that will help. Which it may have already. I'm not paying attention, and that's not my gig. I'm just there to show up and be adorable, funny, and informative. You're like, Hal, I get to see that for free every day. Yeah, but wafting. I mean, I smell terrific. Just saying. Ask anybody. It's worth it just to be in the same room. So that said, whoops, I'm gonna go to here. Chat room, there you are. I want to show everybody just how good things are going, though, and we'll deal with this obviously in the afternoon. We may have to look at this for a split second. I don't know, because are we raiding anybody? Am I screwing anybody out of a raid right now? I don't want to do that if we're raiding anybody and we're leaving. But anyways, how well are things going? This well. Fox News. There's Trump. There's a Iranian flag. Not even a semblance of an American flag behind him. Did you notice that? Like, they're not even bothering. And the title of this video from 4 hours ago, full-scale Iran strikes back on the table. We'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. We'll see what happens. We're going to see. Yeah. This is, this is, and by the way, this isn't from Trump. Trump is actually in, if I may, chat room. I think he's live right now, rambling about some shit, right? Or just did. Let's see if I can find some of this.
Anytime you're ready. Are you ready? They're ready.
By the way, he's already sitting in all of these pictures for a reason. In all these videos, like, he's always there already. They don't bring the press in until he has walked in, sat down, got up and left because he's afraid of falling in front of them.
It's an honor to have these very distinguished people alongside of me, not behind me, alongside of me. I would never say behind me because they're not behind anybody. They're great. This morning, I'm thrilled to sign the Secure America Act to immediately and fully fund the Department of Homeland Security through the end of my term. So we won't have that to be talking about anymore,
That's
Lisa.
good.
Well,
No, we will not, sir.
We'll give the heroes of ICE and Border Patrol, and that's what they...
All right, so he signs this bit, and then I want to, like, yammer, and something Democrats, and these people are crazy, and he's awesome, and these are very respected people, and I don't know what the fuck I'm signing, and words and stuff.
In the stone, it leaks. And so it never really worked very well.
Oh, shit. He's already on the fucking reflecting pool.
And it was a bad color. It was gray. It's concrete and stone, so it was gray. And I had the idea along with...
Like most monuments, when is this asshole going to insist that he put gold columns on all of the memorials? And
some great people that worked for us. Doug Burgum was fantastic. His group, Greg, everybody. And we worked very hard. But it was going to cost $400 million, and we did it for about 10.
Yeah, if you replace the whole fucking thing, he's obviously nuts. I want to see if he signs the stupid thing. Does he?
Anymore. There'll be that day, I think, I hope. But they're in Congress, and they voted with the cartels, the terrorists, the gang members, the drug dealers, the human traffickers, and they approved Steve Hilton very quickly. They didn't want it. There was too much heat on him. The only reason he got approved, he had all the votes he needed, probably to be first. We want a deal that works. We don't want to just have it full.
Okay, sorry. Here's the questions.
At speeds that you wouldn't. Very incredible, actually an incredible machine. And at first they said they didn't do it. Then they admitted they did. It was sort of easy because we had the bomb. We actually.
Hold on. So I think he gets asked about. This is details about the bomb itself.
Well, they voted for all these things. They voted for open borders because they're giving you people vote because they can't. They're not stupid people. You can't cheat like they did. Say it was going to be 2 weeks before they knew.
Boring.
They said it, and then they approved them that night because the heat was on them. So we're going to have a tremendous. See one of them. I know every one of them. If you
said that they've taken two.
Please, let's go.
Mr. President, on Iran.
Here we go. Now we're at the questioning.
You posted this morning about Iran. You said that they've taken too long to get
Look at him over it already.
to a deal. I want to make sure I quote you correctly.
I wanted to put out pointed pictures of my pond.
You said that now they will have to pay the price.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that specifically?
Well, we're going to be attacking them very hard.
You're resuming bombing?
Yeah, well, we are. Based on the helicopter, I guess we have the right to do that. You know, they shot down a very
powerful.
Very incredible, actually an incredible machine. And at first they said they didn't do it, then they admitted they did. It was sort of easy because we have the bomb. We actually have the bomb. Got very lucky that bomb didn't explode. That bomb was lodged in the helicopter, it didn't explode. It was on fire, but it didn't explode. Those two guys, they knew how to fly, but they got very lucky. And then we had the unmanned boat going very, very fast at speeds that you wouldn't want to go.
Also, no, it has to travel at speeds so it won't tip over. It has more to do with the water. As long as the boat's not going to capsize, do you think Marines are afraid of being in a fast boat?
Why it's unmanned, I guess, because nobody can go in that. But
that's just dumb.
They rescued, so both people are, fortunately, the pilots are okay. No, look, I've been working with Iran for a number of months, and they should sign their deal.
There is no deal.
Good deal. It doesn't.
There's no deal to sign.
Give them the right to have a nuclear weapon. In fact, it totally prohibits them from ever having a nuclear weapon. And it was just tap, tap, tap. I don't know what they're doing. So they then shot down. Down is the word you're looking for, you fucking simp. Our helicopter, very expensive helicopter, by the way, but much more importantly, the two men, fortunately, they're okay. But an amazing rescue. If you ever get a clip, you won't believe the rescue, how cool it was.
Yeah, awesome. So cool. Be cooler if they weren't in a position to be shot at in the first place.
The equipment we have. Look, we have the strongest military in the world. And I gave them a break at the request of Pakistan, the Field Marshal and the Prime Minister of Pakistan are great. We stopped them from going to war with India. You would have had a nuclear war if it wasn't for me.
Gibberish.
But they became friendly to me, very friendly, and they're close to Iran, and they...
Gee, how much money do you think we're going to find out the Defense Department gave Pakistan? Also, the Pakistanis are allowing the Iranians to hide their airplanes in Pakistan.
Work, and they still are working on trying them to do what's right, but we want a deal that's meaningful.
On trying them to do what's right.
And they still are working on trying them to do what's right, but
on trying them to do what's right.
Work, and they still are working on trying them to do what's right, but we want a deal that's meaningful. We want a deal that works. We don't want to just have a Barack Hussein Obama deal, JCPOA, the worst deal. That was a path to a nuclear. It's the exact opposite. You know, I like on television, they say, oh, they should have kept that deal. First of all, it was over. It was a short-term deal. But that
no, the idea was that you would continue it because it was working and show that the relationship was building over time. That's why it had a sunset, which is exactly why they're asking for a sunset on this one, to see if they can trust you on the other side of it.
Deal was a path to a nuclear weapon. This is a path against a nuclear. You can't.
So brilliant. I know. It's amazing how simple it is. You know, that's all you had to have. He could have done it in the first term, but he was busy doing other stuff like fucking up the COVID response. So he was going to do it the first time. All you had to do was replace the path to one with a not path.
You can't have a nuclear weapon. His was a path to a nuclear weapon. They were developing during his administration.
Nope.
Nuclear weapon.
No, they started as soon as you tore it up.
If they had a nuclear weapon, there'd be no Israel, there'd be no Middle East, and they would have absolutely shot at us.
And missed. But also, a big portion of MAGA right now is like, wait a minute, no Israel, no Middle East? Don't threaten me with a good time.
So we'll see what happens. But we hit them hard yesterday, and we're going to hit them again hard today, in case you miss it, in case you don't turn on your television set. And
they're actually the reporters.
And we'll see what happens with the deal. We were really close to a deal, but they keep...
No, you weren't.
Keep tapping us along. They keep playing us for suckers because, you know.
And that's your definition of close to a deal, is that you were being tapped along and played for suckers? Holy hell.
You know what? They dealt with some very stupid presidents. I have to say that. I'm embarrassed to say it. Some very stupid people were sitting here. Yeah.
Mr. President.
What do you mean? You last time and you this time?
You mentioned the Senate race in Maine. Are you all in in supporting Susan Collins? Does she have your full support and endorsement in her Senate
She does, because
re-election?
she's a sane woman. She's not my best friend at all. These guys are. I get along well, but I have some.
These guys are sane women.
But she's a sane person, and she's a person that never missed a vote in many years. I mean, she's like had 10,000 votes. She had 10,000 votes. She never missed a vote. Unfortunately, because sometimes she voted against me. Look, she's a sane woman, and she's a respected person.
And notice how he says that like sane women are rare.
Maybe a little different ideology than me, but this guy is a thug.
Yeah, that's true. She actually believes in democracy, I guess.
He's a fake thug. He's a phony.
So he's not actually a thug then.
I made a lot of money picking out phonies. He's a real
Yes, we've seen the people in your cabinet.
phony. He's a bad person.
Mr. President, are you going to go back to attack, or are you thinking of attacking Iranian power plants and bridges as you've...
Well, I'm not going to say that to you, but I could do that. Look, I could knock out. We have the most powerful. I built the
Yeah, could isn't the fucking question, buddy. We know that America has a giant military.
military with
And it's not you that's doing it. You could order it.
these people approving it. And we approved numbers that nobody would have ever thought we would have been. But we built it. We gave a lot to Ukraine through Biden. He gave a lot of money, a lot. But we're in great shape. We have a lot of storage capacity. But he gave a lot. And
Sorry, what'd you build up? Lockers?
if you look at,
Oh, beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I should have done this. It's morning show. I sometimes forget. Apologies, guys. That's rough.
what's happened, when I left, our cupboards were full. He gave it. Now I sell it to the European Union, and they give it to Ukraine for the most part. But we have the strongest military anywhere in the world.
So if you sell something or give something away, is the place it was sitting less empty? You go to a shelf, there's an item. I'm going to sell it or give it away. I take it off the shelf and I sell it / give it. Is that space on the shelf still full if I sell it versus give it away? I mean, obviously we're not talking about love because, the more love you give away, the more love you feel.
And sometimes you'll have to use it. And we have to remember, and when people hear this, Iran very simply cannot
Cannot have a nuclear weapon.
have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, I thought you obliterated it last year. That's the thing people need to remember is you said it was gone last year.
And they won't. And they've agreed to that.
No, they have not. They have never agreed to that.
All they have to do is they have to start signing a paper. It's fully negotiated.
No, it's not.
We have a fully negotiated, but they're tapping and tapping. And I
Then it's not fully negotiated.
say, all right, let's give them a couple of more days. They're tapping because it's a meaningful paper. They know when they sign that paper, it's meaningful.
Why? You tore up the last one. Why the fuck wouldn't they just sign it and then call bullshit?
The Obama deal, JCPOA, one of the worst, one of the dumbest documents I've ever seen. Yeah, please.
Never read it. He's never read it.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, when are you meeting with tech executives about the government taking a stake in AI companies, and what could this partnership look like?
About AI? Well, I can say this. We're having a meeting with them. It's an amazing industry. It's bigger than any industry anyone's ever seen. We are leading China by a lot.
No, not quite.
And, whoever leads that is going to...
It's also, by the way, not an industry. I mean, the software industry in and of itself is a bit silly because the industrial nature of these kind of things is often temporary and certainly not geographically significant. You could move an AI headquarters anywhere in the world anytime you want to in a way that you couldn't with a car plant or a steel plant. It takes time,
really
shovels, shit like that.
lead the world to a large extent. That's how big it is. And I'm going to have meetings with the top 12 or 15 executives very shortly. And we're talking about giving back something to the public. And if we do that, the public will become very rich, the people in our country, because that's the kind of money we're talking about.
Yeah, usually we have a mechanism for that. You do realize it's called taxes. That's it. We have a system by which successful businesses contribute to the country they are in and pay for the services that they enjoy, that everybody gets equal access to, but that they take advantage of more often.
And I think they'll do that, and I think it'll make it very popular.
Thank you, President. I have two questions. First of all, Turkish President Erdogan keeps threatening Israel. Do you think there's a chance of a conflict between Israel and Turkey, and will you sell F-35 to?
Well, as you know, he's a very good friend of mine. And we've worked very well together. I like him a lot. I'm not supposed to say that because the press will say, oh, he likes Erdogan. No, he's a hell of a leader and a strong person, very strong person.
Tall, sure. Violent.
I haven't heard that at all. If I did.
Really? So I guess Pulte's doing a bang-up job as the acting DNI.
I'd call him, and I think I'd make sure that things were fine.
Okay, there's a phone on your fucking desk, and she just told you.
I don't think that will happen with Turkey. Not as long as I'm president, because he respects me and I respect him. But beyond that, we have a good friendship. So, we'll see.
And my second question, that's my second question. Besides peace in the Middle East, what do you wish yourself for your birthday?
For my birthday? Well, I'll go a step bigger. Peace for the world, okay? Peace for the world. Middle East, yes. Peace for the whole world, yeah.
Can't you just do that with one phone call?
There is a New Jersey Democratic congressional nominee over in the 12th district. His name is Adam Homily. He has a connection to the Blind Sheikh.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could get your thoughts.
I think it's terrible. Okay? I think it's terrible. I've seen it. I mean, he was more, now he's trying to sort of say, yeah, I sort of knew him. He didn't know him. They were very good friends. And you look at the
blind sheikh is what they were saying. Okay.
You go back and look at what happened during that period of time. He was a witness at the trial for him. He was a positive witness for him. He said the most glowing things. The guy knocked down the World Trade Center, admitted that he knocked down the World Trade Center. I think it's another one, if you look. I actually think the one in Maine is worse.
Why?
Because he's just an outright pig. He's like a pig. I watched him.
Oh, well, it takes one to know one, I guess.
A couple of times. He's like a pig.
All right. Well, if it's difficult to come up with other words, sometimes you open up your thesaurus and there are pages missing, I guess.
That's what it reminds me of. I come up with good names for people. I don't want to stick him with that one, although I think pigs would be very upset about it. Go ahead.
Mr. President, July 1st is coming fast. How confident are you that you'll be able to renew the USMCA, and what more do you expect from Canada at this point?
Well, I'm not looking to renew it. I don't, I made the
the USMCA was the shittiest deal ever.
And the primary reason I made the deal is that NAFTA was the worst trade deal I've ever seen.
Until the USMCA came along.
Yeah. And I made it better, but I had the right to terminate. And, with NAFTA, we didn't have the right to terminate. I had to get these senators to approve that deal. That was a tough thing, Congressman, too. NAFTA had no termination. So,
well, no, Congress could do it.
I've never said this before, but I'll tell you what my thinking was. NAFTA was a disaster for our country. The worst trade deal ever made, by far. They had typos in, okay? And they were supposed to correct them. And they never corrected them when they were signed. They knew they were.
Yeah, and so we lost a lot of money because people were acting based on typos. They were buying and selling. The tariffs were applied based on typos. Airplane. Somebody wrote fair pay. Shit.
Typos. And there's a process for that. You state your claim and, you get a change. They had typos on percentages. Or maybe somebody wrote, and that was for years. They never ran, they had horrible, all against us. So it probably wasn't typos. NAFTA was the worst trade deal we ever had.
Yeah, I'm just going to think you disagreed with the direction of it or didn't understand the document you were reading.
USMCA did one thing that I loved. After 6 years, it comes up for renewal. I don't know that
This is the only way you can get it passed.
I'm going to renew it because, to be honest with you, the United States does much better. Hey, we don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they
Yeah, it's not about a weed, motherfucker. It's about the companies that operate in the United States that make things in those countries. And those companies in the United States get very rich and their employees make a good living because those things are made elsewhere. It's drop shipping on a massive scale.
they need everything that we have.
No, they don't.
And they have to treat us better. You know, with
Also, what the fuck does that mean?
Mexico and Canada, we have trade deficits.
Right. Because we have more money than they do. Let me guess. Do you think most people in vehicles getting off, taking an off ramp on the highway have a trade deficit with the guy that sells oranges? Do you think that guy buys more from the cars that go by than they buy from him?
We should have surpluses with them.
So why? They don't make more money than we do. That's fucking dumb. No wholesaler retailer relationship works that way. They don't have the kind of people. People in California eat more avocados than all of Mexico. Hipsters, Gen Zers eat more avocado toast than all the avocados used in Mexican cooking in the country. Because of the volume of people and the money involved, dum-dum.
We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything.
We don't buy Mexican cars. They're American cars made there. And we do need their lumber, dipshit. Look at the cost of building a house.
Yeah. So the primary thing that I got, it was a much better deal than NAFTA. Much, much better. It was
That's why it needed a 6-year sunset.
It was sort of a good
and why it sucks, so you're shutting it down.
deal. But it was a
Sorry, what was that again?
much better deal than NAFTA. Much, much better. It was sort of a good deal.
It was sort of a good deal, which is much better. So NAFTA's the worst thing ever, and USMCA was sort of better.
But it was
The greatest deal. Remember, he used to tell us it was the greatest
a
deal.
great deal for one reason. It gave
It ends.
the right to terminate. And who would have thought that I was, they just didn't want to have it during the 4-year period when I was president. So now they made it so that I wouldn't be president. And because they rigged the election, the second election.
Sorry. The idea is that if Harris had become president, she would have continued USMCA because it fucks America. But Trump is lucky that he gets to kill his own deal. Honestly. Run that by me again.
When I was president. So now they made it so that I wouldn't be president. And because they rigged the election, the second election, as you probably hear and probably know, most of you know that happened, and now it's been proven.
No, it hasn't at all.
And it will be proven as time goes by even more. So we have things.
Well, you can't prove something more than you've proved it. You've either proved it and it's true, or you haven't. And if you haven't yet, then you haven't proved it. So shut the fuck.
Things that you won't believe. When we release the full
You're right. I don't believe it now. Release the whole thing. What are you waiting for?
files, you're not going to believe how crooked the second 2020 election was.
Well, go for it, asshole. What are you waiting for? Seriously. What's the hang up?
But who would have thought that it comes due in my term? I mean, this was, thank you very much.
So you get to kill your own deal. Thank you, God, for allowing me to get rid of my deal that sucked in the first place?
It was very important that we be able to do that. So we're talking to them. We'll see if we do something.
Also, I guess the idea, though, is that Harris would not have sunset his shitty deal. She would have kept it going. And that's an example of how bad she would be as a president, that she would have continued the deal he made, which is ass.
Came in here and you posted about Bill Pulte and that he'd be Turkey starting the job early. You said he's going to be downsizing the DNI. Can you talk about your
Well, yeah,
thinking
people
there?
have wanted that downsize for a long time. And many
Have they?
people don't want it at all.
Does that
A
mean
lot of people thought it was a
intelligence job?
duplication. Yeah, a lot of people thought it was
So you're putting Pulte in there to fuck it up?
a duplication. He's done a great job at Fannie Mae, and you know, you take Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, the value of that.
Oh, he wants to privatize it. It's so weird. So he thinks the guy who he's going to allow this guy to have access to our most crucial secrets, so that he has leverage, so that later on he can buy Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae out from the U.S. government and run it as a for-profit scheme. Which God knows, no for-profit mortgage company has ever had issues.
Has increased so much since I've been in charge. You know, I had the right to sell that, and in my
No, you don't.
first term, a group came to see me wanting to buy it, and they offered me exactly 10% of what it's worth today. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to look foolish when they flipped it a year later for hundreds of billions of dollars more. So I kept it, and I put him in charge as soon as I got here, and he's done an amazing job.
And so what he's trying to do is like make it worth less, so that he could sell it on the cheap, and then he can buy into it and then flip it, because he couldn't be a part of that deal.
Could be worth $1 trillion.
That's a pretty different portfolio, though.
Well, it is, I know, but you know, smart people are smart people.
No, they're really fucking not.
I always say I'd rather have smart than experience, but experience is good too.
Brilliant. Write that down. Somebody put that in Art of the Deal 2, the sharpening.
I would say this, he's going to be there for a short while we pick somebody else. We're interviewing 5 different people. They're all very good, very different, and we'll put somebody there. But people want it downsized.
Kid Rock, Vanilla Ice, a UFC fighter who's currently hospitalized with a brain aneurysm, some Russian dude who just changed his name to Bob Smith and says he works online on Twitter as a pro-MAGA bot.
The senators and the Congress people, I think everybody wants it downsized. And many people, I think, and I won't speak for Todd, but and I'm not sure how Todd feels, but by the way, he's great. I hope you people have given him an easy run, because he's very busy. He doesn't need...
Yes, busy hiding the Epstein files, busy redacting Trump's name from the files, busy holding them back, busy furthering Pam Bondi's memo where there's nothing to see here, and Epstein totally killed himself, and and it's all over, and there are no more co-conspirators, and especially not anybody that Trump knows personally and is still in business with, people who actually have ownership stakes in his Chicago and his New York tower and some of his golf courses. Not at all. So, and definitely not gonna give Ghislaine Maxwell a pathway to pardon as long as she keeps her fucking mouth shut, right? Yeah, he's been going through a lot. He's a busy dude.
Stupid people saying, why didn't you get a higher mark at a certain college? Because he's...
Yeah, nobody's saying that about him. They're all saying, why the fuck are you hiding the Epstein files? I mean, they know the answer.
Highly educated. He was a great student. He's great at everything he's done. But how come he got a B+?
Yeah, that's not anywhere near the criticism. I think it's, why did he get an F in the release of the Epstein files? How about that?
See, they'll go after him for getting a B+ instead of an A, but the other guy can be a thug and let him run. He's okay. He's fine. The one thing about him, it's great, because every time they bring something up, he's worse than anybody that we've ever seen. And I hope the Republicans are going to use him as your standard bearer when they say that, gee, yeah, Eric, we don't like the way you dress today. It's unacceptable, right? And then all you have to do is point to this thug that they're trying to put in. So pretty much that's the way it is. He's going to do a good job. He's going to be there for a very short period of time. He will be superseded and replaced by somebody that's going to have the job permanently. Okay?
What do you make of this?
Well, in theory, if you can get that person, who would that be? Also, by the way, I want to, if I could, normally we don't go over on the morning show, so I want to welcome, we've got some maggots and trolls here. Welcome, guys. Thank you guys for helping us in the algorithm in a way that we can't do on our own. unless you guys show up and write shit. I'd like to remind you that Donald Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's wingman for 27 years. They met in the mid-'80s, largely introduced by Roy Cohn, another close friend of Donald Trump's who's a dead pedophile. Trump, famously sang the praises of Roy Cohn, viewed him as a mentor. And when Roy Cohn was dying of AIDS, he was asked by a reporter, what will you think about people saying that Roy Cohn is a gay man who died of AIDS? And Roy Cohn, Donald Trump's buddy, said, Roy Cohn, speaking of himself in the third person, which is also another trait that Trump picked up from Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn is not a gay man. Roy Cohn is a straight man who fucks boys. That's a guy who ate over at Donald Trump's house, and Donald Trump went to his house all the fucking time. He introduced Jeffrey Epstein to him, and they hung out a ton. They were during the 90s, they were basically inseparable. And during the early 2000s, Trump just kind of kept it on the down low. He never had to go to the island because Epstein brought the island to him. Two of his main residences are less than a 5-minute cab ride from Jeffrey Epstein. What is the odds? What are the odds of that just happening naturally? That somehow those two guys are always fucking neighbors. What is West Palm Beach the only place with a golf course in the path of obviously an airport that you could buy cheap and never really build anything else on? And the other thing is, in terms of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, my argument is, of course, that you would have to have TDS to vote for Donald Trump. You'd have to be deranged to think a second-generation rich kid born with a silver spoon up his ass who's never actually built anything. He just leveraged his own dad's properties and stuff and turned his family's business into a marketing campaign, and then became a game show host as he went bankrupt 6 times and was ultimately bailed out by the fucking Russians through Deutsche Bank. And that guy is your standard bearer for a bootstrapper from the heartland. Good luck. Also, by the way, if you're waiting for him to arrest Obama, Hillary Clinton, whoever, Gavin Newsom, whoever the fuck else, and say that the Russia thing was a hoax and he's going to throw him in jail and all that kind of stuff, I recommend you hold your breath, because that's never going to happen. Now, why is that never going to happen? Why are those lawsuits and those criminal charges never going to be brought? Because the rules of evidence in this country allow for discovery. And Donald Trump would be fucked by discovery. And he knows it, which is why the charges will never happen. It's also why he threatens to sue over slander and then pulls his case afterwards. And same thing with Kash Patel. They all pull him because once they go through, if anybody actually calls their fucking bluff, if the judge doesn't just throw it out as a slap lawsuit, which is happening in most of them, he pulls, Trump or Patel or whoever these assholes are, they pull them. Why do they do that? Because if they ever go to trial, the discovery process will prove that the person who was, what they were saying in the press about them was true. Also, has the deficit gone down under Trump? No, he's responsible for 1/3 of our national debt. $40 trillion, 1/3 of it is just him. Has the deficit gone down year over year? No. Has he kept his promise of no new wars, no regime change wars? No. Did he ever intend to? No. That was always a lie. He didn't get suckered into it. He didn't get, badgered by Netanyahu. He made the decision. And if you want to make the case that he was threatened, blackmailed, or cajoled into it by other people, then you have to come to terms with the fact that he was able to be threatened, badgered, or cajoled into it, right? If Netanyahu can whisper in his ear and make him attack Iran, that's just proof he's a dough-headed bastard, right? How fucking stupid do you have to be where 7 phone calls from Netanyahu makes you commit the United States to another war in the Middle East? Right? So is he the art of the deal, the greatest president ever who makes the tough decisions people, other people aren't willing to make? Or is he a dough-headed old fart who gets, Trump whispered by Netanyahu or Putin or MBS? It's one of the two, and both of them suck. Because ultimately, he chose to do this war in Iran because it was on the list from PNAC, because he's just an average Republican. The tax cut he gave to the wealthy came right off of Mitch McConnell's desk, and he can shit all over him, but that's just propaganda. Same thing with the wars in the Middle East. It's checked right off the list of the Project for a New American Century. All of his executive orders were written by Project 2025, and he lied about it because he doesn't want to seem like he's a puppet on a string. And he knows that's where the money is, so he's willing to do it because he doesn't give a shit about these things, and he just certainly doesn't want to look into it. He just likes the fucking reality TV aspect of this. But good luck. You know what I mean? Keep selling it. Hey man, if you're making a living as a bot online, go for it. I wish you well. And if you're looking for somebody's like, what have you? It is. I would go the Infrastructure Act, basically. By the way, this is another good example. The USMCA sucks, and the best thing about it is that it sunsets, and that's the best part of his deal. He negotiated that deal, and it was basically NAFTA again, but with a sunset. He's like, I was lucky here that I was able to shut down my own fucking deal. How is that an argument? Well, we'll just continue on with this. I mean, I could go on all day.
Democrats saying they'll hold up the...
I don't care what they say. Democrats. They're not Democrats. They're Democrats. They're dumb people, yeah.
You need their votes.
Yeah, does he think that lands as a grown man? Like any of the maggots in the chat, do you think you'd be satisfied if you just pointed at somebody and said, you're dumb? And you'd be like, wow, I nailed it. Or would you go, fuck, I sound like a fucking loser. Just calling people dumb. That's the best I got. Dumb and pigs.
Then I guess
I'm a master of media manipulation. I come up with the best nicknames like dumb.
something's going to happen. No, we can't let them extort us. I told the guys today, we can't let them. They've done it on numerous occasions. I said we can't. What we're signing today has been amazing, but they tried to extort us, and eventually, and they were losing tremendous support because they're extorting on law and order, and they can't win on law and order. People want law and order. They don't.
Obviously, unless they're charging up the steps of the Capitol and beating the shit out of them, or the Bureau of Land Management is trying to, balance who gets to use grazing lands, and the Bundys can put fucking red dots on the chests of police officers who are there to serve warrants for them to remove their cattle from the land because it's used by a lot of different ranchers in the area, and they were taking it over effectively, using public land for their own enrichment and denying the grazing land to other people, or taking over fucking park facilities for themselves, whatever, or stockpiling grenades in the basement of the church in Waco, for example, and fucking children. Then the Republicans not big on law and order.
They don't want crime, and that's essentially what.
Sorry, what?
People want law and order. They don't want crime, and that's essentially what they were doing. And ultimately, they could not take the heat. But we can't let them extort.
Mr. President, it starts tomorrow.
What starts?
The World Cup.
Yeah.
Soccer World Cup, football World Cup.
The most successful World Cup they've ever had.
Before it even started.
Exactly.
They've never sold tickets at that level. They've never sold that many tickets so quickly. It's amazing because you don't think of soccer. We use the word football, soccer, right? But you don't think of soccer in this country. It's the most successful. I spoke to Johnny this morning. He's fantastic, and he's the boss. He said
it's going to be the people who can afford to fly to the United States don't mind the 4.3% inflation because they're rich in other countries. They're the kind of people who jet set around to watch soccer in other countries.
There's never been anything close to what's happened.
But because of the success, some people are afraid that it's going to be harder and harder to get visas to come from outside. Can you?
Well, we're working on it very closely to make sure the right people come into our country.
That would be ticket holders, I'm assuming.
I I will.
I
will.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No,
headwind
I love it.
for
The
Republicans
numbers were
in terms of
great.
trying to hold
You know what I
The inflation numbers were great, 4.3%.
really love? I love the inflation. You know why? Because as soon as this war is over, you know, I can say it now. Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil? Nobody
From Venezuela.
knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran until right now.
Oh, he's saying that millions of barrels of oil have been going through the Strait past Oman, and they've been sneaking stuff around. That's what he's been taking. That was reported like 3 days ago.
We took out the other night 22 ships late at night with no lights because they don't have any radar because we blasted the crap out of it. We took out, that's why
Well, they managed to hit a helicopter.
oil's $85 a barrel. I mean, you take a look. Remember when I did this, I said, look, the one bad thing will be we hit the best economy we've ever hit. And I said to my people, I had Scott, I had Howard, I had
Also, not the best economy. Prices were still high. He means the stock market.
Pete, I had all of them. I had Todd in the room. I said, the one thing we have to do now, we had just hit the highest stock market in history, highest 401ks in history. Everything was going well. And I said, I hate to do this to you guys, but Iran's going to have a nuclear weapon very soon.
Sorry, those people weren't in the room when they told you this intel? Who called you and told you this, if not some of your cabinet?
We have to go and attack. So we hit
Or you just vibed it? This is a vibe war.
them with the B-2 bombers, which took a lot of courage. It was totally successful. We buried it.
Well, if it's totally successful, what the fuck are we doing
Very
there?
hard to get. But now we had to make the second move. And I said, you know, the bad part is the stock market will
So, sorry, now we had to make the second move. So there's, I presume, a third and a fourth?
go down by a lot based on predictions of experts, like 25%. And it was worth it. To me, it was worth it not to have a nuclear weapon. And the other thing is that oil would go to $250 a barrel.
That number has grown. Oh, it was originally 150 and then 200, and then he said 300 to 400. Now it's 250.
It's at 85. And which is pretty amazing. And here's the key. We just hit today another stock market high. 74 in my short time here. 74 days we hit stock market all-time historical highs. Nobody can believe it. The Dow, the S&P. S&P was at 7,000. They said in 4 years, maybe 5 years. It will never hit it during the term. It was too much. I hit it in my first year. I hit on the Dow, it was 50,000 was an impossible number. They said 5, 6 years.
Also, I don't know where anybody actually said that. He keeps saying they said it was impossible. Nobody actually thought it was impossible, especially with AI as a new layer on top of the, on top of the current industries. It was a brand new field, essentially.
6 years out, you'd hit. Well, I hit it in my first year.
And you didn't hit it. I know. I love how maggots are all like, the government doesn't create jobs and the president doesn't control the stock market. And then as soon as Trump gets in, he created all these jobs and he's in charge of the stock market. He's the boss.
And now I get everyone in the room and say, congratulations, but now I'm going to take it down a little bit because we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And they all agreed with me. Todd, you remember. Everybody agreed. And we took a little journey down to Iran. We first stopped off at Venezuela, by the way. And we have paid for that war many, many times over. And
that wasn't a war. We abducted the president and his wife.
We have great relationships with the people of Venezuela. We get along with them great.
The very same people who were allegedly throwing people into the country that he says were emptying jails and prisons are still running the country. The only change is Maduro himself. Everybody else in government is exactly the same people.
It was a great success. It was a one-day war. It was really, to be exact, 48 minutes of fury, and it was over.
48 minutes of fury, and it was over. It's like it was like his, sex with Stormy Daniels. If you add 45 minutes.
Venezuela's doing great. Relationships with the people are great. It's become a happy country, believe it or not. I mean, it's become a happy country, and we're taking out millions of barrels of oil from Venezuela. And then we went to Iran. And essentially we've done the same thing. It doesn't look as pretty, but there's no Navy. 159 ships at the bottom of the sea. There's no
By the way, he believes that because he's seen AI photos of ships on the bottom of the sea.
Air Force. All of their planes are blown up.
No, they aren't. The vast majority of them are parked in Pakistan to protect them during the war.
Most of their drones are gone. Most of their drone-making ability is gone. Most of their missiles are gone.
Well, then what's taking them so long?
All of their leadership
Most is that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
is gone, so they replaced it. All of that leadership is gone, so they replaced it. And that's the people we're dealing with now. And
that would be,
I think,
who? Who now? Who?
they're going to want to make a deal, but we're going to find out.
Inflation to come down between now
Oh, when the war is over?
Yes.
It's coming down.
I know you can't.
It's going to come down like a rock. And again, we're taking out millions, which I'm just announcing today for the first time. But we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil. Millions of barrels. Every night we took out oil. But now I'm going to tell you because they just figured it out. So now that they figured it out,
It was reported 3 days ago.
I can tell you, it was very hard for me. I wanted to say it so badly, but it was
Also, we weren't doing it. The Omanis effectively were opening a portion of their waterways that they knew weren't mined, and everybody was going through there. And by the way, we're probably going to find out later that Trump negotiated with the Omanis to allow them to take a fee, you know, kind of like a stunt pay, danger pay, to have those ships go by their, through their waters, which is exactly, by the way, our helicopter was shot down near Oman. That's what they were firing towards.
I didn't want to ruin it, but it was very hard. But millions of barrels of oil has come out. And that's why it's at $85, $90 a barrel instead of $250. But we have the greatest military in the world, the toughest military in the world, just the best in every way. Nobody even close. There's no military that's even close. I rebuilt it during my first term. I'm using it now. When this conflict is over,
Another audio.
Todd said, please call it a conflict, right? As opposed to the word war. He didn't like the word war, but it's sort of a conflict. It's a military operation. When it's over, you will see oil drop to where it was before. We're getting gasoline. Just before it started, I was in Iowa, and we paid
Oh yeah, $1.85, $1.89, $1.90. Yeah, yep. Yep. We've heard this one before as well.
gas stations
No, it wasn't.
$1.85
No, it wasn't. It was $2.50 in Iowa.
a gallon. And
He was looking at a kerosene price.
we'll be back at those levels very soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
You just gonna get up and leave? You're just gonna?
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, bye everybody. Everybody get out. He's gonna take off.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Forgot to sign it.
Wait.
Oh yeah, wait. He forgot to sign the bill. They're the only ones that mind. Yeah, because they're gonna miss you writing your name on something.
See, Biden wouldn't do this.
No, he wouldn't. He needed a machine.
That's the real deal right there. Okay.
Beautiful.
All right, so there we go. There's the end of the questions, and basically it was the same blather from before. Turd polishing, around the city, basically comforting himself, picking out fixtures like he used to do instead of actually building buildings. I'd like to say for the record that if somebody wants to give Trump a cognitive exam, what you should have is pull out a blueprint in front of him and have him explain without using the key, what it actually shows. How the schematic for the building, what's sewage, what's lighting, what's electrical, what's structural, all that kind of stuff. I would love to see that. He's like, can I just do the one with the horse? And yeah, person, woman, man, camera, TV. And I would like to say for the record that I stand by my belief that Trump is having chemo. I do not wish him to die or die of cancer or any of that shit. I'm just telling you, that's why he has that funky bruise on his hand and why he disappears for days and days. I will see you guys this afternoon. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc., etc., etc. And I will see you this afternoon. Let's see, what about this button?
crown like cold winter light, scroll in hand, 7 seals, every word cuts and heals. Red horse screams, hooves like drums, sword raised high, kingdoms come, peace unstitched by a single roar. I hear thunder at my door, wars and rumors of wars, spoken like a curse in the dark. Every headline, every scar is another cracked heart in the ark. Wars and rumors of wars, hey, echo from the prophets and seers. When the Lamb breaks the seal, all the old world shakes with our fears. Black horse ways, bread and bone, steel stilled hard, iron stone. Measure grain by a dying sun, silver short for everyone. Pale horse waits, eyes like gas.